For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of incredible and intense racing action in the Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Championship as powered by Trophy AI and brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC. You know and love it, it's iRacing. Round number 2 comes round, and as quickly as the dust settles from round number 1 at Daytona, we have made our way from the United States of America to another united country in the form of the United Kingdom for the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Located in the southeastern county of Kent in England, is a circuit that was withstood the test of time over an extensive history, the best part of 70 plus years, but one thing that's remained at its core is it is a tight and highly technical circuit with 9 fast-flying corners, limited straights, limited width, and it means track position around here is absolutely key unless you're absolutely brazen under braking, where you can go with your rival into a mistake. But either way around here, the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit is no stranger to GT3 class racing, playing on an annual basis host to the GT World Challenge Europe's Sprint Cup season, where it opens up the season campaign year in, year out. And here today, we're going to see one of the opening rounds of the championship play out here, because after an incredible week of racing in round number 1 at Daytona, where you can imagine that this week, it's going to be even more intense here, with the pressure and the stakes only getting higher from this point onwards. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you to this live broadcast from the circuit side as you tune into all the racing action from Split B, and that does cover your Premier and Evo classes. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX1 or Brit in a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all your racing action as it unfolds over the entirety of the season of Split B, and all this racing action available only on the Evolution Sim Racing YouTube channel, of which we do say hello to you girls and guys tuning in right now via the YouTube channel. And don't be shy, feel free to say hi and let us know who you're cheering on today and how your day's been. And if you've got a bit of a frown on right now, perhaps you had a difficult day, well, don't worry, let's turn that frown upside down into a big old smile here with some classic GT3 class racing. And indeed, we've got 48 drivers looking to take on the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit today in Split B. It's going to be a crowded circuit, and that means with certainty there's going to be plenty of battling. Of course, I should point out that we do have a simultaneous broadcast ongoing at the moment for Split A, our top level classes, and that being our Elite and Pro classes, and that's being covered by the absolutely wonderful vocal talents of your commentary team over there, Chaz Draycott and Dara Thacker. And so whether you're tuning to Split A or Split B, we welcome you to these broadcasts, and let's get the story underway today in terms of how round number 2 is going to play out. Now, as we come into this round, of course, let's take a recap of our season so far and what we've still got lying in wait. And we've got plenty to go, because last time out on the 26th of June, it was the Daytona International Speedway's road course that opened up the campaign, and what a round of racing it was. Indeed, there were plenty of firsts for many out there. A brand new aero model for our GT3s, a brand new tyre model for our GT3s, and that tyre model in particular catch out many clear driver, not just in qualifying, but also over race distance, with many drivers who put in absolutely phenomenal qualifying performances suddenly dropping it right at the start there. And well, you can imagine that many of those drivers will today be looking to pick up the pieces and make sure they don't fall victim to cold tyres early on in the race, because that was the big confounding problem. And that's why the key things as well, we've got plenty of drivers to watch out for, whether it be in the Premier or Evo class, and some of those names who took difficulties at Daytona, included in the Premier class the fast-charging Audi of Martin Kenyon, who qualified on third, only for it to be in the wall coming out of the exit of turn number 3 on the opening lap. Alternatively, the premature retirement of Robin Aston, who retired from the lead on the opening lap. In the Evo class as well, keep your eyes out for many a fast driver out there, and particularly Tiago Reza, who took the lead early on but fell victim to a major incident in the opening 20 minutes of the race, and therefore he fell out of lead of the Evo class, and the door was opened up to somebody else, which we'll reveal a little bit later. But as we come into round number 2 then, it's the 3rd of July, and it's the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit that plays host for our first sprint race round. We've got 2 30-minute races compared to our 1-hour feature race, which we opened up on last time. But after today, we head back to a 1-hour feature race format for 2 rounds in a row. We're in round number 3. Next time on the 10th of July, it'll be the Fuji International Speedway in Japan, followed up then by potentially mixed conditions at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps on the 17th of July in round number 4. And then we have a sprint triple header for rounds 5 through to 7, whereby we head to Virginia International Raceway, then the Misano Grand Prix circuit, followed up by the Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours, before we then switch back to a feature race round for round number 8 on the 14th of August at the Interlagos Grand Prix circuit. Road America will play host for our penultimate round on round number 9, and on the 28th of August, the curtain comes on down, because it will be the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. We bring everything to close at the home of British Motor Race. Indeed, what a calendar, and we're only just making our way into it. But as we sink our teeth into it this second round, well, let's talk a little bit about our circuit. It's the Grand Prix circuit of Brands Hatch. The full layout, 9 corners, spanning 2.3 miles or 3.7 kilometres in length. Located near the village of West Kingsdown in the county of Kent in England, the United Kingdom, this circuit is rarely used in real-life racing, due to it clashing with the local village, where the village has gradually expanded to actually back onto the circuit, particularly the run of turns 6 through to 9. It means that this circuit, unfortunately, only sees usage 12 days of a given year due to an agreement with the local council. But thankfully, we've been able to get in contact with the Simulated Council of West Kingsdown and Sevenoaks Council, and we've been able to ask permission to go racing here today, and they said that that's okay, and therefore we're going to be going on the attack. A big thank you to iRacing.com for the brilliant simulator and the track maps that come with it, and the one thing this track map does not demonstrate is the severity of the elevation changes around here, where it be at Paddock Hill Bend at turn number 1, the biggest plummet and arguably the hardest corner in the United Kingdom to get right, or the charge uphill into Druids Hairpin at turn number 2. As I'll make the way down through there, then it'll be Graham Hill Bend at turn number 3, an off-camber downhill left-hander, before they make the way along the Clark Straight and all the way in towards turn number 4 at Surtees Bend. Coming through the left-hander that never seems to have an apex until you suddenly find it, and it's then the run down onto the back stretch, and that'll be the charge of Pilgrim Drop up into Hawthorns at turn number 5, where the Grand Prix loop truly begins. And it's a fast flying section of 4 right-hand corners. Hawthorns, followed by Westfield Bend, then it'll be the run down through Dingledale up into Sheen at turn number 7. The corner we're going too wide is tantamount to disaster for those who are on the outside, before they come into Stirling's Bend at turn number 8, the sharp right-angled left-hander, where it's all about abusing the camber of the road to carry speed, and then down the back straight, down through Clearways, and into Clark Curve at turn number 9 to complete it and go all over again. And that's a 9-corner lap here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, and we could expect those laps to come in quick-fire succession. And that sets the scene, that sets the tone, and let's head to circuit side here, because of course we won't be bringing you your championship standings until next week's broadcast. As the general rule of thumb here at Evolution Sim Races, we do take a couple of rounds to make sure that we do have our drivers' championship standings ready, and those will be presented to you as of round number 3 onwards, as I understand it, and we'll give you an update on the team's championship standings by the start of the round 4 broadcast, presuming all goes well, as we just need a little bit of time to get all the points algorithms in place and make sure that all the teams are settled down and the classes are locked in. But as practice heads towards a close here, we've only got a minute left on the clock. Well, right now all the drivers out there trying to go for the best possible lap they can in practice to get themselves settled right on in. But look who's right at the top right now. He wasn't at Daytona, but he is here today as he goes for a spin there coming out of Druids Hairpin, and that is none other than Hussein Sarkadelsler. And right now you could imagine in that McLaren 720S he'll be feeling quite good there, given the fact he is 1.4 tenths faster than second place man James Bostock, as we do see Mark Johnson here meanwhile roaring his way around, and Johnson looking too slow either out there. Now, the form we are expecting here coming into today's round is the fact that at Daytona, it was a mixture of straight line speed versus ability to be strong in low speed corners at the hairpins. Here at Brands Hatch, it's all about corner speed. There's not too many long straights. You've got the start-finish straight, which is not that long. In fact, by the time our drivers get to top gear, they'll be back onto the brakes immediately for Paddock Hill Bend, and the run down through Pilgrim's Drop up towards Hawthorns from Surtees. Well, that is a short run as well, and therefore straight line speed is going to be sacrificed for corner speed and grip here. So you can imagine the downforce will be at a maximum in terms of those rear wings, but some drivers may opt to shave off a tiny bit of rear wing just to potentially give themselves a straight line speed advantage in case it helps a little bit later over the race distance. But either way, as we bring this practice session to a close, well, it's time to head into qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. Who is going to put it on pole across our classes? Let's find out. So as we head into the qualifying session then, it's 20 minutes and it's 10 laps all together, and all the drivers will have all that time to do their best. But keep in mind, of course, the short length for this circuit, it does mean those laps will be accrued quite quickly. So in terms of form then, we talked a little bit about the potential setups our drivers will bring to the table. But what can we expect from our differences of cars here? We're the best part of 10 plus GT3 machines in terms of the different manufacturers and brands on the grid. Well, we can expect it to be the theme of mid-engine rear-wheel drive, and rear-engine rear-wheel drive will be the cars that in theory should do very well versus front-engine rear-wheel drive machines such as that here of Tego Reza in the BMW M4. Now, why is that? Well, the general theory is if you put the engine behind the driver and towards the rear of the car naturally wants to rotate more because the centre of mass is rearwards and the rear of the car comes around as you go through the corner. Basic Physics 101 when it comes to motorsport, which is more weight towards the rear of the car, the more the car will come around the corner more aggressively, but then you have to drive the car using the throttle pedal, as they say, and particularly none more so than in the Porsche 911, or in here, this situation, the Porsche 992 911 model, the GT3, and we see a prime example of the 166 here at James Bostock, whereby it does have the engine over the rear axle, and the idea is you use the throttle pedal to balance the engine and force the engine down on acceleration onto the rear axle, and that enables you to be able to carry the speed. However, let's not say it's going to be fully mid-engine rear-wheel drive and rear-engine rear-wheel drive leading the way, but that's the theory, where we should be seeing Porsches, McLarens, Corvette Z06s, Ferrari 296s, they should all be up there. However, you can never quite rule out, of course, the likes of front-engine rear-wheel drive machines. We know the BMW M4 is a very strong car in its own right, and we have plenty of M4s here, including Moonshine and Racing clubs. What is Dean Sheesby here as he roars his way up speed in towards 30s and try to get as much tyre heat as possible, and also never count out the likes of the Ford Mustangs out there, although I believe we do not have any Ford Mustangs on the grid today, and indeed they seem to be a little bit of a rarity this season, but we do have one or two Mercedes out there unless I'm mistaken, and here is one of the Mission R, and it's Jonathan Berry as he heads on in. So therefore we could expect these cars to spring some surprises, and indeed Mercedes are not shy to scoring big here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, and many of you may remember a name, Rafael Marchiello, and indeed he does hold the lap record in reality for the fastest lap set by a GT3 machine in the Acodis ASP Mercedes AMG Evo 2020 machine, and that was set in 2023, and I can tell you it's one of the finest laps that's ever been delivered around the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, and the man made everyone look stationary over race conditions there. But going from reality back to the simulator here, although we do always like to say with the simulator that whilst the racing may not be real, the emotions and physicality is absolutely real as well. Well, the drivers getting themselves wound up here onto their first flying laps, and we'll start to see some times coming in shortly, but let's talk a little bit as well about the story after the opening round, and particularly the top three of each of our respective classes. So in the Premier class, what is the story? Well, the story is that this man, Mateusz Smolny, for Mission R, when we did see Robin Aston drop the ball with his premature retirement right at the start of the race, going into the Bostock chicane where he seemed to disappear out of existence due to an engine failure, well, Mateusz Smolny was the man who picked up and he just ran away with proceedings in the end. He didn't look back. He maintained a very good gap to Luke Bailey, who ended up being the runner-up in Premier class, and well, from him it was then James Bostock who took third place. Now, where is Luke Bailey out there? I hear some of you asking, can we find him out there? And at the moment, at least, I don't think we can see him out there. Is he missing this round? That might be a question. Well, I'm sure we'll get some footage of him shortly if he is here. Albeit we do have a field now of 50 cars. I believe we have had a Ford Mustang turn up in the form of Pete Piver, and we look forward to seeing that out there. But it really was the situation whereby this man, Mateusz Smolny, was unbeatable over the distance as he goes very deep there into Paddock Hill Bend and gets that stop just in time. Goodness me, and I can imagine right now he might have been reeling back in his cockpit there for the simple reason once you go deep at Paddock Hill Bend, it's very hard to get the car car to stop because the corner descends downhill, and naturally all the car wants to do at that point when you go deep is carry you deeper and deeper into the corner. But as he makes one out right now, lap times are gradually coming together, albeit Smolny yet to get a lap on the board, but he was the man to beat. And in the Evo class, meanwhile, well, it was the story of a man who switched from Ford to McLaren, coming from Season 8 to Season 9, and the man who, arguably, on paper at least, is considered to be one of the early favourites, or at least one of the favourites coming into the season, given his Season 8 performance, and it's Grant Miller, who we see here for Phoenix Racing, and well, this McLaren and Grant are absolutely singing on tune right now, and he's going to be looking to try and make it 2 from 2 today, because he had an extremely solid drive from pole position. However, he'll be wary of the fact that one man beat him into the lead early on in the race, but a mid-race instant, and that was for this man, Tiago Reza, caused Miller to really take back the lead and never look back on it. But for Tiago Reza, he'll be hoping that today things can be much more straightforward and he doesn't end up with the difficulties at Daytona, but we will wait and see whether that's the way it plays out, because of course the championship campaign is made of 10 rounds and the best part of 15 plus for races. In fact, it's 17 races in totality, as we see Reza there making his way back to the pit lane. But where some fell, others rose, and it was Jordan Maymar who was the runner-up in Evo class last time out, and his overcut strategy meant he was able to stay ahead of third place man Steve Rubino as they fought with the Premier drivers around them along with each other. A big spin there coming out to the hairpin for Jordan Maymar, just pushing it a little bit too hard and not that much runoff area there with regards to the exit curb. Very easy to dip a rear tyre, particularly that rear left tyre, onto the grass and send the car around there. Deal learned from that one with the Simcast Racing Team at UK driver. But as for Steve Rubino, well, the very colourful liveried BMW here, the Hobo Racing Machine, well, he was third and definitely started off his championship campaign on a result he wants to continue. Got everything right on the strategy, but was unfortunate in the end to miss out on second place despite his rather unique undercut strategy where he went the earliest of most Evo drivers into the pit lane, but in the end a little bit of traffic and fighting with Premier drivers meant he just lost out the time trying to chase down Jordan Maymar, but it could go either which way today. And the strategy is going to be a big story here at Brands Hatch, given the change of overtake. And I can imagine those who go for the undercut or the overcut at the right time, they may just find themselves suddenly leading the way, and they could gain not just 1 or 2, but potentially 4, 5, 6 places overall. And how many will that translate into class? Well, that will be a big question. So that's the story recapped in terms of your top fleet in each of the respective classes. As we do say hello in the YouTube chat there to Katie Kitty Eames. Good evening to you, Katie. I'm doing well, thank you. Temperatures have cooled down in the commentary booth, and I must admit it does mean I'm able to process words a little bit more effectively. Indeed, it has been very hot here in the United Kingdom for the last few days, but still, from the heat, there's going to be plenty of heat on the tarmac here today. It's a brilliantly sunny day here in the Garden of England, the nickname given to the county of Kent, and that sunshine is going to mean track temperatures going to be nice and high, and for our drivers, they've got the perfect conditions here to try and put in some solid laps. And of course, as always there, Katie Eames tuning in for the Verano Academy drivers, including Craig Tillerson, who'll be out there trying to give it his all as well. Can we find Craig Tillerson out there right now in amongst all drivers? Yes, we can. There he is in the Acura. And I must admit, I do love what Verano have done with the livery of this Acura. If anybody remembers, the NSXs raced with the Castrol livery colours in GT World Challenge Europe and also GT World Challenge Asia. They've really incorporated that livery, but put a spin of their own on it with the Verano Academy livery put over the top. Indeed, I'm getting flashbacks here to what is, I believe, a driver known as Baptiste Baguette, who used to race the Honda NSX GT3 back in 2016, if my memory serves me correctly. And indeed, I'm having to go back for my history of enjoying GT3 racing over the years to recall that one. But still, from history to the present, well, right now, Craig Tillerson down in 16th place in Evo, 36th overall. But those lap times continue to come on in, as we also say hello there to Andrew Chell. And I hope you're doing well, Andy. And, well, one of the big names for Quatermass Esports, or Quatermass Motorsport. And we look forward to seeing him and the team out there as well as they give it everything today. But as we do look to Menno Blum, who's currently the fastest man out there, and as soon as I say that, I'm made to mark my words, because Mateusz Smolny goes even faster, and it looks as though at least the top 4 at the moment is going to be the battle of the Porsches there, as it is Smolny, Blum, Bostock and De Vries, all Porsche drivers, and separated by varying degrees of hundreds and thousands there. And I'm not trying to quote the sweets of, if you're of a certain disposition in the United Kingdom, you'll remember sweets from, I think it would be the 1970s through to the 80s, of hundreds of thousands, now known as millions to the younger generation. Goodness me, I'm getting old at this point, 32 years old. I'm now getting to the point of being able to say of my generation versus others. But right now, generational gaps aside, it's so tight there between the top 4, and then it's only a further 13 thousandths to Steve Rubino here, and well, he's looking very quick out there in the Evo class right now. And if anything, I wonder here whether we could see Grant Miller's performance at Daytona, replicated here by Steve Rubino, whereby he just puts in an absolutely staggering pole lap for the Evo class and nobody is able to match him. Now we should point out this is a closed qualifying session, which means all the drivers are out on an isolated instance of the circuit. They have no other drivers around them, so there's no worry about stumbling over each other. Alternatively, the potential prospect to try to pick up a tow. You've got to do it under your own volition and deliver absolutely as much as humanly possible. But as he roars his way around, well, we do want to get on board lap with one of our drivers very shortly, and to do that, we're going to jump on board here with Austin Graf as he makes his way on around, and we ride on board here with Graf as he heads towards the timeline. So in the Ferrari 296, heads into Paddock Hill Bend at turn number 1, braking out just after 100 metre border, down to third gear and let the car roll down for the opening corner, runs all the way out to the exit curb and now up the hill into Druids. Holds on the brakes there at the 100 metre board, down to first gear, nice late apex, mounts the curb to give a bit more rotation. Got to be careful of doing that, however, because it can cause the car to oversteer, but through turn 3 he goes, and as he does, no undermining stability there, he uses the entire corner plus plenty more, and now into Surtees Bend. Onto the brakes, about 175 metres of corner apex, and at last he finds that apex, and now full throttle as he exits the corner and onto the back straight. Here, this is where you'll see the high speeds reach, where we're going to be seeing Graf headed excess of 230 kilometers an hour by the time he gets to Hawthorne's Bend. And as he looks to brake there just on the 50 meter board, down to fourth gear he goes, chuck the car in and use the camber of the road and your throttle to steer it through, and now into Westfield. Things get very aggressive through here on it, through the right-hander, cut the curb, ride over it, back on the throttle, and now downhill through Dingledale Corner and up the hill he goes, in towards Sheen Curb. Here, completely unsighted over the rise, and as he rolls his way out to the right-hander, has got to quickly snap the car to the right-hand side to open up the left-hander of Sterling's Bend. Down to second gear, long gearing setup here in the Ferrari, perhaps running a taller gear stack in order to avoid gear shifts, and as he heads in towards clearways, now onto the brakes for Clark Curve at the 100 metre board, plenty of apex curb being used there, cuts it a little bit too fine, that will have unsettled the car and cost him about a tenth. We head towards the timeline, but it's still an impressive lap from Austin Graf. Where's it going to put him as he crosses that timeline? Well, he was 15th coming into that lap, and he leaves that lap still in 15th place overall. But what about the class qualified positions here? Well, as we can see that right now, it's John Ludbrook who's currently the fastest in Premier. Indeed, those lap times keep on coming in, and he's on what is Premier pole position, the overall pole position currently, by only half a tenth over none other than Liam Yaniso. As in Hussein Sarakadesla says, hold on everyone, the Super GP2 McLaren's here to do something special. Well, he jumps his way up into pole now, 22.379. They're all continuing to find that time out there. This is absolutely incredible between our drivers, and indeed, the fact they've got plenty of laps to get those tyres up to speed and plenty of opportunities here. We are really going to see some of the finest qualifying laps we've ever seen over the course of the Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Championship history, because our drivers are being given every opportunity here to try and put some incredible laps as Rob Smith launches his way there in a very fetching flatline racing liveried McLaren all the way up into second place in class and overall at a 22.444. Well, he loves his fours most definitely, but what about in the Evo class? Well, it's Steve Rubino, still your provisional pole man, and he's on pole in that class and third place overall by 2.5 tenths over Jonathan Berries. He goes even faster, does Rubino, a 22.458. That's an incredible lap there for Rubino. He is absolutely flying out there in that BMW M4. He's making some magic happen in the German mark machine here with its massive kidney grille front end, and as he roars his way out to turn number 3 and in towards turn 4, I don't think anything's going to stop the man right now other than some misfortune in qualifying, but I don't think that misfortune's going to find him here. I think this might be the season where all the misfortune of season 8 has been put away. He got it all out of the way in one season and has now decided to just get his head down, but roaring his way onwards here. We've also got other drivers who are really impressing in the Evo class. We do have, of course, Jonathan Berry in second, Philip McConaughey currently in the McLaren here. He's in third place, and well, a very shiny livery machine there. That's harking back to the days of the late 90s McLarens and the early noughties and the Mika Hakkinen and David Coulthard era, I believe, and perhaps even extending, funny enough, into the Kimi Raikkonen and Lewis Hamilton era, and of course the dispute between Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton that led to the splitting of the team, or at least the two teammates there. But we look to the positives, and that's not a positive there as McConaughey sees things go around at the exit of Graham Hill Bend, stops it just in time for going to the barrier, but so easy to do then, just a little bit eager and pulling on the throttle pedal as he also had the steering lock applied, and well, that's a mistake that anybody can make. But what about surprises or alternative shocks potentially qualified so far? Well, one of the biggest one in Evo, the man who looked very furious at Daytona, Diego Reza, well, he's down in 9th place at Evo at the moment. He's still to find some time. We know that BMW's fast here because Rubino's putting it on provisional Evo pole at the moment, but he's a sizable way off there. And not to pick on him, there's some other names as well that are having some difficulty in this qualifying session at the moment, including Oliver Forsstrom, and well, right now the Quatermass Motorsport driver. Well, that Lamborghini Huracan Evo perhaps not in a happy place around here. It does roar absolutely lovely with its Audi V10 engine, but it looks as though right now at least he's not going forwards, and in fact 33rd overall at 12th in Evo. He'll want to try and get into the top 10 if possible, as otherwise this is going to be a very challenging race for him, and he'll try to pick up some points over the distance. I'm certain of that. But as he heads across the timeline, we do say hello there to Jan Usberg, who says, "Good evening, Paul. What a great feeling sitting at the grandstand tonight. They serve cold beers." Well, I'm absolutely happy to have you with us, Jan Usberg, and indeed, goodness me, I miss seeing you on the grid, and well, I hope you're doing well, my good sir, because you're an absolute star on the circuit. It's great to have you with us tuning in right now as all drivers continue to roll their way on through. Also, some other surprises. Let's just talk about the Evo class. Let's also take a look at the Premier class, and Ross Norsworthy. He's not having a very happy day in qualifying at the moment. 17th in Premier, but as we look to the overall positions, 23rd overall. I mean, it's an incredibly tight qualifying field, to be fair, and to put you in the frame of mind why it's so tight, well, first, all the way down, and I kid you not when I say this, first all the way down to 24th, so it is Stone just behind Norsworthy on the provisional grid, if it was to finish as it currently stands, separated by less than a second. Hold that thought for a second. 24 drivers at a very technical circuit. Yes, the lap time is just shy of 1.5 minutes. Understandable, it's a short lap, but less than a second separating 24 drivers as it currently stands. Right now, a slight improvement of a 10th if you're Ross Norsworthy, and this would leap you all the way up into 17th place ahead of Robin Aston. That is how close it is at the moment this qualifying session, with 5 minutes left on the clock. But we are getting to the pinch point of qualifying now, because a lot of our drivers, particularly the ones who are very eager to get the qualifying laps going, they have completed their 10 allotted laps, including, that is, Steve Rubino and Jonathan Berry, the top 2 of the Evo class, and also James Bostock is into the pit lane after 9 laps. He's not improving any further, and he won't be able to go out again. But Rob Smith, he's currently the fastest driver out there in overall and Premier, and well, on a 1 minute 22.197. Can he find any more time out there? He's going to give it another go, and well, from him right at the top of the field, right towards the back of the field, well, we have Barry Wenman, and right now, it must be said, the 23rd place Evo driver, the only driver who has not matched him, because he does have a qualifying ban due to penalty points picked up from the opening round, and that is Andy Chell, or Andrew Chell as he's 9-4. He's in the YouTube chat at the moment, relaxing, because of course he's not allowed to go out there, but we'll see him at the race starting from the back. That's not necessarily a bad thing if you start from the back, by the way, because if we do have any major shunts at the start of the race, well, those who start from the back, they may be, of course, to pick up plenty of places, presuming they can avoid all the carnage and they can safely make their way through. But anything can happen here in motorsport, and indeed at Brands Hatch, and it normally does. But right now, Barry Wenman, the lowest placed of all drivers out there, so 48 drivers putting laps in. He is 48 out of 49 competitors today, and I can tell you for one thing, 49 GT3s roaring the way around the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. When we get this race underway, well, that is going to be an absolutely sensational amount of horsepower, absolutely roaring it way away. No doubt about it. But as all drives come to the close, 3.5 minutes left on the clock. Have we got any more laps out there to be delivered? As we do see a big improvement there from Wenman right at the end. And there's a 23.540 that puts him into 31st place. Well done to him. That's 10th place in Evo. Well, can anybody else find some time right at the death of the session? We've got a few drivers who have yet to get onto their final laps, including Craig Tillerson, as the sun does shine on him briefly. And I wonder here whether Tillerson's leaving it all late. Perhaps he's really building up something special here, because he's down in 37th at the moment, 16th place in class. But the fact that he does have 2 more flying laps after this one, and he's given himself just the right amount of time to squeeze them both in, well, let's see. In fact, he pulls over immediately. As soon as I hype him up, he lets us down there, albeit I'm not being rude about you, Craig. Apologies if it did come across that way, but then decides to park up. And for Craig Tillerson, that's the end of qualifying. Perhaps he only put 8 laps of fuel in the tank and decided, plus the outlap, of course, he decided that where he was able to do in 8 laps, that would be it. Well, fair play to Tillerson. Indeed, some drivers may not use all 10 laps there, because, of course, to do them all, you've got to put more fuel in the car. And also, tyre wear is going to be quite big here, particularly on those left-hand side tyres, which do the majority of the work. What this circuit being primarily a clockwise circuit, plenty of right-hand turns, and it's always the outside tyres that have to do the greater amount of work. But as we then come to 2 minutes remaining here, we say hello there to Jonathan Berry, or Berry Racing, who right now taking a bit of a breather, and well, just in time as he does, we see Martin Kenyon there taking a bit of a wide line coming out the final corner, and the Audi R8 Evo 2 cross line, currently 6th in Premier, but where's he going to go come the end of it? He doesn't improve, he stays where he is. That's a good qualifying performance there from Kenyon. He needs this to bounce back from the difficulties of Daytona, because he put it 3rd on the grid at Daytona, but by the end of the open lap, it was right towards the back of the field, and he didn't quite get it to recover from there. George Stone making his way on through, and they're in And the wonderfully covered Mission R machine will make his way down towards and up towards Hawthorne, I should say, via Pilgrim's Drop. He's going to get this final lap in, and that will be it. But as he roars his way on through, turn number 5 and in towards 6 via the Derek Minter straight there. Right now for Stone, not too much time left here, and very soon he'll find out his fate, as will all the drivers, as to where they're going to line up on that grid for the first of our 2 races today. And remember, the race 1 grid is set by the qualifying session. That's a given. The race 2 grid is set based on the results of race number 1, but we invert the top 15 finishers, so 15th place starts on pole. Meanwhile, the winner of race number 1, they start 15th for race number 2, and those who finish 16th down, that's exactly where they start for race number 2. So quite straightforward there, and we look forward to seeing how that grid lines up later. But right now, it was a big run wide there for Robert Savage. Well, that is going no further. That's not going to be an improvement, and I think with that, that's going to relegate him to 32nd overall, 11th place in Evo, because we've got no Evo drivers lower than him looking to improve, or indeed any drivers right now. Stuart Rice, well, he is going to be the final driver out there to get a lap in. Has he got enough time? He's still got half a lap to go here, and he's only got 30 seconds. I don't think the Blue Sky Esports car is going to make it on a round to complete its 10th lap, but it's running very wide. A wide run out of Westfield Bed. He's pushing very hard there as he heads up through Dingledale into Sheen Corner. I'm amazed that did not end up on the grass, given how much width of the road he's using, but Rice has the confidence to use all the circuit width. And with 10 seconds left on the clock, I don't think he's going to quite make it all the way to the end, as we say hello to Dawn there. But as he rolls his way out the final corner, well, right now, what's going to be Dawn in here? Is it going to be a special lap, or is he not going to make it? I don't think he's going to make it, or is he? Did he get it across the line, Stuart Rice? I think he didn't, and he will stay 26th. Well, that's qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. Let's head to the grid for the first of our 2 races here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit in Split B of Season 9. So the drivers head to the grid, and this is how they'll line up in preparation for their full formation lap. Rob Smith has taken his first pole position of the Brands Hatch day. A very brilliant lap there for Flatline Racing, a 1 minute 22.187, and indeed a pole lap by only a slender margin, by a single hundredth over James Bostock for Carmate GP2 Racing. And well, when I invited James for an interview with me after his 3rd place finish at Daytona, he said, "Paul, I'll reserve the right when I take my first overall win of the season." So Bostock right now will have a big grin on his face, because he could be trying to make magic happen here today, and if so, we'll be getting an interview of him at the end of today's broadcast. Behind the front row, it's Menno Blem with a great 3rd place lap there for Sim Racing Team Lowlands, a further half a tenth behind, with Hussein Sarkadesla starting 4th for Summit GP2 Racing. It's a mixture of McLarens and Porsches on the front 2 rows, but behind them we then have a BMW in the Evo class, setting pole for Evo, and that is Steve Rubino with an incredible Evo pole lap there for Hobo Racing. Well done to the American driver. Starting in 6th, John Ludbrook for Carmi GP2 Racing, ahead of Martin Kenyon for Axis Simsport Ice. Keep your eyes out for that Audi. It's a very quick starter in Martin's capable hands, and he's in the company there of Liam Yaniso, the Belgian driver who starts 8th. Behind the privateer, it's to row number 5, and Mark DeVries for Sim Racing Team Lowlands, and Axis Simsports Ice. Mark Johnson will make up that row, with then Rob Mackay starting 11th there for Dexterous Motorsport Zen. We'll then have alongside here Jonathan Berry starting 2nd of the Evo drivers, Submission R, and then we will have Robin Apownia starting in 13th place, the smiling Swede there for Sim Coach, ahead of Mateusz Smolny, winner from round number 1's feature race. But here it does seem as though the change of circuit and the change of format have changed things up here for the Mission R driver, because he starts 14th in a difficult qualifying session. From the Polishman, it'll then be the Briton of George Stone for Mission R, his teammate just behind, and then we do have Racer League Hub's Philip McConaughey starting 16th place, 3rd of the Evo drivers. Then we'll have behind him the leader of the championship in the Evo class, Grant Miller for Phoenix Racing at Red. He starts in 17th place, ahead of Robin Aston, who starts 18th for Carme GP2 Racing. And how a week of the circuit changes things, because Aston right now not on the pace, but 8 tenths off of the pole, with Dean Sheesby starting 19th for Moonshiners Racing Club, ahead of Plas Vellum for Penguin Racing Endeavours. Outside the top 20, there's still plenty more drives to talk about, and Austin Graff will start 21st for this race for Axis Sports Ice as the formation lap gets underway. He'll be in the company of Ian King for HH Racing, with then row number 12 going to Owen Seward for DXT Motorsports by OOA, and Ross Norsworthy for Supercast Racing Team UK. Togo Reza starts in 25th for 9 Pegasus Pantera, and alongside the Brazilian driver will be the Briton Stuart Rice of Blue Sky Esports. And then be Andrew Fellows, who starts 27th for Flatline Racing, ahead of Evo Privateer Samuel Clark, and completing your top 30 will be Andrew Montine for Axis Simsport Ice, and Craig Tillerson for Ferraro Academy, who did in the end find his way a little bit further up the order at the close of the session. Ryan Abbott starts 31st for Team Nubish, ahead of Robert Savage for Mission R Esports, with Barry Wenman starting 33rd for Dexterous Motorsports Gwem, ahead of Sean Clark, his teammate from the sister team. We then have Flatline Racing's Daniel Paul starting at 35th in a difficult qualifying session for the 82 driver after a great performance under race conditions at the Daytona circuit a week ago, with Oliver Thorstrom lined up alongside on the 18th row for Quatermass Motorsport. From the Swede, it will then be the Jersey driver of Jordan Maymar for Simcast Racing Team UK, ahead of Eddie Theobald, who starts 38th. And then we have the top 40 completed by 2 Premier drivers who had difficulties in qualifying. That will be Pete Piver for LS Racing and Racing League Hub's James Pallett. And then coming towards the end of the grid here, we go to 41st place and we find ourselves with Alex Boniface for Dexterous Motorsports M, ahead of Charlie Stoffard for Phoenix Racing Red. What a terrible qualifying session for Stoffard. He's got a lot of battling to do, but he loves doing battling, no doubt about it. With Matthew Hunter starting 43rd ahead of Simcast Racing Team UK, or as Simcast Racing UK's driver, ahead of Rachel Hugh, I should say, for Blue Sky Esports. And then Michael Evangeli starts 45th for Mission R, ahead of MJK Sim Race's Denny Ploger, with Danny Ware starting 47th for Dexterous Motorsports M, ahead of Sammy Ariba for Mission R. And last but not least on the grid, Andy Chell starts 49th there for Quatermass Motorsport. But that is your 49-car grid for race number 1 of the day, ladies and gentlemen. And as they make the way then into the final couple of corners behind the pace car, it will be to Rob Smith to take us to the green for 30 minutes of racing. The first of 2 sprint races here in England. And as the pace builds up, it's go, go, go here for race number 1 of the day. It's a great start there for Rob Smith as James Bostock immediately tries to go round the outside to hold off Meadow Blum. But Blum on that inside is going to make the move stick nice and early as the drivers were all the way up the hill. We look to the blimp camera here in perfect time. Well, the opening top 20 seems to be safety through Paddock Hill Bend. But now here's the crunch point as they all come into that braking zone for Druid. And who's going to be smart? Who's going to try and go for lunges on the brakes? Well, I can see there King trying to make a move with Owen Seward, but they've decided to settle their differences elsewhere. And further on back, plenty of moves being made there by Danny Veer, making another place there. Danny Ware, I should say, ahead of Denny Ploger, and out of the corner they come, but down they roar down in towards 30's Bend. And well, as they make the way out there, let's come back down to your closer camera angles. We've had a couple of off tracks for Miller, also Forstrom, but I think a number of drivers just making mistakes, and we will get you an update on some of the early incidents because we have had something go wrong for Miller and also for Philip McConaughey. But everyone right now enjoyed a good run, and it's going to be line of stern formation quite quickly, albeit Meadow Blum and James Bostock, neither one here decided to settle down in the fight for second. Bostock back up the inside through West Hill Bend, and look at Steve Rubino here who says, do you mind if I come out to play? And Blum suddenly finds himself ambushed on the outside of Rubino on the inside. Little tap between the two of them, but they both back off there, coming on through Sheen Curve. Bostock's back on the inside here, coming through Westfield, going through Sterling's Bend as I lose track of my corner names. And right now, Bostock and Rubino, they're not losing track of each other as Bostock gets back ahead here, coming down Clearways into Clark Curve. And Rubino has to go defensive here with the Evo pole sitter right now. He's got his boxing gloves on, he's going fighting with all the Premier drivers. He wants to be right at the front of the field here. He wants to score an overall podium. He's feeling very confident. But Blum and Circa Dessler side by side here. It's almost free wide into the opening corner. Blum looks around the outside but takes the gravel, does Meadow Blum, and he will be carried off the road. He'll rejoin very gradually, but he's got to be careful here on the rejoin because he's rejoining right onto the racing line, albeit he'll do so safely off camera. But up into Druids Bend they go, and with that loss of Blum, that's going to be a big knock to Sim Racing Team Lowlands' performances. We're now Mark DeVries trying to pick up the pieces. Jonathan Berry there looking up the inside of Rob Mackay, the second place Evo driver here, feeling very sprightly in the 96 Mercedes, albeit can't quite make the moves there because Robin Aston too wide with Meadow Blum, and also George Stone trying to get to the mix, and Aston will get ahead of the pair of them as Stone looking up the inside there. Blum carried it on through Surtees Bend. Now will Blum be able to outrun his fellow Porsche driver all the way down towards Hawthorne's Bend? Also, it tells me no, he won't, because on that outside line, yes, he would have had more room to negotiate, but he won't have the speed. Blum's still there on the inside, and behind them, Pioneer just watching on the Corvette as we do try to get on board here of that Corvette driver. And here it is, the Corvette 06. Oh my good lord, who's that? Coming in like a rocket. That was the BMW Dean Sheensby carried absolutely charging through, and that sent what was the driver who's just in front of us, Menno Blum, a long way out the circuit as Pioneer gets it wrong, and coming up the inside of him there, that's none other than Klaas Vellen. Well, right now, everyone's absolutely going for it here, and I think some drivers decide to act as missiles for the simple reason they want to try and make these moves stick, but there's a fine line between going brazen on the brakes versus becoming an ICBM, and I think there, well, Dean Sheensby might have just gone a bit intercontinental on that one, but we will find out from the stewards. As meanwhile for Menno Blum, it goes from good, it goes to bad, and then it goes to disaster as Stuart Rice follows him off the road there, coming out to the final corner. There's contact between the two of them, and Rachel Hugh picks up where her teammate has left off as she moves forward for Blue Sky Esports. It's absolute pandemonium towards the end of lap number 2, and we've got plenty more to come here over the course of 30 minutes of racing, and we're going to get some replays of those incidents very shortly. Whilst all this is happening, well, there's even more to come here, as that's free wide for a brief moment. Mark Johnson makes his way around the outside of Rob Mackay, with Mark DeVries getting a lot of power oversteer there and almost falling onto the grass on the inside of the exit at Graham Hill Bend, and around the outside of him goes Mackay. Mackay now up into 9th place here, and Mark DeVries falling backwards for the Sim Racing Team Roland, this British circuit definitely not a favourite of the Dutch drivers right now, or at least it's trying not to make a favourite of them, because they seem to be having a lot of bad luck whether they like it or not. But as they head out to Hawthorns and in towards Westfield, right now things will calm down between them. George Stone meanwhile making onwards, as that's the car to the barrier there for a brief moment, and it's obscured by the timing tower. Who is that who's hit the barrier? That is Ian King, who's had a bit of a moment, I believe. No, it's not. In fact, that's Klaas Vellen, who's been ejected out stage right. He finally comes back aboard as the Penguin machine, but right now it's not feeling all Madagascar. It is feeling very down there in reference to the Penguins on the side of the car. There's a front bumper that's been left in the gravel trap coming into Sheen Ben. Not quite sure whose that is, but it is a bit of a struggle there, and I wouldn't be surprised if Klaas Vellen makes his way to the pit lane at the end as well, because that BMW is limping along. I can see one driver who's not limping along right now. It is none other than Danny Ware, who is absolutely flying out there. 13 places gained since the start of the race, and right now the 155 McLaren is on a mission. It's on a charge as we jump on board here with the 155 for Dexterous Motorsports MX. Now, as he heads his way into another lap here, well, his next target will be Matthew Hunter, and from this point onwards he does have the best part of 7 Evo drivers to try and pick his way past. He'll have to do them one by one. That Ferrari is looking quite a victim already. A potential move, that's way too late there for Danny Ware, and in the end, well, I think getting caught out on the brake, and I think he thought he could go for it, but Matthew Hunter in the end being speared to the side, and around there it was the number 10 driver, and that's going to be a very frustrating one for both of them there. And what we don't like to normally call when incidents happen, but I get the feeling there that as soon as he did it, Ware may have thought to himself, okay, I've come from too far back. The door was open, but I think in retrospect Hunter might have just been to open up the door there to rotate the Ferrari a little bit more. But still, I'm sure they'll talk about that one after the race, and it may go to the stewards depending on how things get settled. But meanwhile, well, that is a free wide attempt. It's 2 teammates fighting here with Rice and Hugh in the Lamborghini Huracan Evos for Blue Sky Esports, both exchanging paint. And as they roar the way through Hawthorns Bend, well, right now Hugh on the inside, it's Rice on the outside here, and Rice trying to go around his teammate. Well, that's going to be brave through Westfield Bend, and Hugh not backing off here as much as Rice would like, but eventually does let it go. Not about Stuart Rice having to take a long trip around, and well, they finally exchange their differences, and that's the car pointing the wrong way. Is that Andy Chell pointing the wrong way? Yes, it is, and Chell reversing off the road. I'm not quite sure how the number 5's got there, but it's ended up going the wrong way round, and now he gets it pointed back in the right way, and Andy Chell's difficult start to today is only going more and more in a negative direction. But still, thankfully, he's got 2 races, and you never know, race number 2, he may be able to pick up some big points. But from the struggling Freightermass Motorsport machine to looking further up the order, we have Liam Janiso here, who right now, the Belgian driver, he's had a good start to this race, up into 7th place with an 8th place start. He's got Mark Johnson right behind him here, and onwards they'll go towards another lap. But as they do, things do finally settle down a little bit to a degree, and well, we have an opportunity to take a look back at some open lap incidents, and particularly some of the early drama, as we had a relatively undramatic start for the opening 2 corners, but some drama found its way to Philip McConaughey firstly, and what happened to McConaughey on this opening lap. So side by side, he went over one of the Michelin machines coming out of Druids into his Grand Hill Bend at turn number 3, up the inside, and went all in, and in the end, overcooked the rear, and well, that was why we did have the excursion there, and I believe that was none other than, I think that might be Grant Miller having to take evasive action, not 100% sure, but I'll try and see what happened to Grant Miller, but McConaughey in the end just being caught out on that inside line. Yes, it was Grant Miller who ended up losing his front bumper as a result of that contact with McConaughey, but he was trying to take evasive action, and then, oh my goodness, and Oliver Forstrom right into the back of Grant Miller, and Miller's car rolling back across the road, and how everyone was able to avoid that, that is miraculous. Well, from Oliver Forstrom's perspective, I suspect this was a situation whereby he came out this corner and thought, right, I'm good to go, watch Miller on the right of your picture. I think he's misinterpreted here, Miller going slowly, and at that point, car behind's tapped Forstrom, so we didn't see that on the previous replay, and that is why Oliver Forstrom at the end went into the back of Miller due to a misanticipation of Miller's speed, and subsequently the whole field piling up behind him, all of the drivers unsighted. And well, that does happen when incidents happen in front and you're unsighted out of a tight corner. You don't have that much visibility at the start of the race, but it's very easy to trip over other drivers. It's the equivalent of knocking over dominoes. When one falls, they normally all fall, and that's the style of incident we have seen there. So that was some of the difficulties that we saw from our drivers on the opening lap. But then what else happened elsewhere on that open lap, I hear you ask? Well, we did have a bit of a moment for Daniel Paul and Michael Evangeli, particularly Evangeli, who's ended up having to retire from this race, or at least go to the pit lane. Here was the number 37 Ferrari, making its way out of Hawthorns Bend, came across there, oh no, and right onto the side there of that car, oh my goodness, and rolling backwards, and that explains why Andy Chell has gone a lap down already, and that's before the subsequent incident for Andy Chell that we then came to a bit later. What then subsequently happened to some other drivers further on down the order? Well, we do look to Stuart Rice's big off-track moment here, and this was where Menno Blom got carried with him, if my memory serves me correctly, when Blom had already had a difficult lap on lap number 2, and then Stuart Rice in the end, well, Menno Blom was turned there, and Rice just finding Menno Blom in the wrong place. Can we understand what happened to Menno Blom in that moment? I think we might be able to. Was this a battle with Ryan Abbott, I wonder? Can we get a better camera angle of this? The answer is no, we can't. I think that was Abbott's fighting with Blum, and as they made the way around, well, no, it wasn't Abbott's fighting them. We can't quite discern who it was. What we can tell you is that Blum was slightly tapped there on the rear quarter panel based on what the cameras suggest. But again, we only have access to a limited number of cameras. But going from our replay, so let's make sure they're limited in number, because otherwise we're going to miss some absolutely brilliant racing. We've got more to come to then, as we've still got 21 minutes on the clock past the final lap. And here is Mark Johnson versus Martin Kenyon fighting side by side as they make the way down through Pilgrim's Drop, and that's a change of place. Mark Johnson gets ahead of Kenyon and moves up into 6th place there. And I think Kenyon might have had a bit of a poor run out of Surtees, perhaps just missed the apex or went a little bit too early or late on it, and therefore Johnson got it right, and the McLaren moves forward versus the Audi, but still plenty more time to go as this race continues to move forward. And remember, 30 minutes of racing, tyre wear won't be as big of a concern compared to the 60-minute races, but our drivers will still be mindful they need to do some tyre management, because they want those tyres to last the entire 30-minute distance. They do not at any point want to have to come into the pits, because coming into the pits here, even though it is one of the shortest pit lanes in the world, the Brands Hatch Grand Prix pit lane, and it's one of the ones you lose the least amount of time at, you're going to lose quite a sizable amount of time if you come into the pits, and that time loss will be in the region end-to-end in the pit lane, where fast repair, it will be the best part of 18 to 19 seconds. And that will be very difficult to make up over the race distance. But as we do say hello there to Joe, who's cheering on Ross Norsworthy, and also Izzy at Grimaldi, who's cheering on Sam. I'm not quite sure which Sam out there at the moment. Is it Samuel Clark, potentially? Well, Samuel Clark is in the pit lane, and I believe the car is having some repair work done to it at the moment, so that's going to be a bit frustrating for Clark. But as he'll be making his way back out the pit lane, fast repair has been used. I'll look at my content booth window, where we look back to a man who had a very difficult day in qualifying, James Pallett in the Ferrari 296, and this Ferrari under pressure from Denny Ploger, the man who got caught up in that bit of contact with Michael Evangeli at the start of the race, but survived it. And Pallett right now for Racing League Hub, breathing down the neck of Menno Blom, and well, that will be the Ferrari driver chasing the Porsche, but comes off of the exit curve there, Paddock Hill Bend. The car comes slightly loose as he makes way out there. I wonder how low he's running that Ferrari in terms of its front ride height to end up acting like that coming off the curb. And indeed, you can run these cars very low, but if you do that, you run the risk of the race curves re-ejecting the car out. The car essentially railroads over the top of the curbing, and when it comes down off them, it can lead to very unpredictable behaviour. But how about this for predictable behaviour? 2 wide they come into Hawthorne's bend, and 2 wide they exit. Jordan Maymar defends the inside versus Austin Graff, and there's nothing between the two. Graff had a very miserable start to the race for Axis Simsport Ice, and well, Maymar will hold that position on him for now in the battle of the 2 Ferraris, but Austin Graff definitely feeling feisty as we look to those class positions here, and well, you can see how things have shaken up. Well, it is the regular suspects at the top of the Evo class, Steve Rubino, John Berry, and Owen Seward, and Owen Seward in fact having a good start, 3 places gained there in the very colourful McLaren, and well, with the losses of others, he's been able to pick up as he makes about the inside there of a lap down number 80 car in Evo, and I believe that is going to be the car of Grant Miller, who here right now is just to make sure he gets to the end of the race and potentially picks up a couple of slivers of points, because every point will mean a prize at the end of the season if you get it right. And well, Austin Graff into the pit lane as I look out my content booth window. And do remember there have been some rule changes coming into this season, particularly on instant points limits for both the sprint and the feature races, whereby the limits have been lowered considerably, and therefore if our drivers are getting a little bit touchy-feely with each other, plus also end up picking up more off tracks and also potential loss of controls, you will see a risk of drive-through penalties becoming more commonplace from circuit to circuit, and that's why they've got to be very smart in terms of how they make the moves at Brands Hatch, because if you go for a move and it's not on, well, most of the time it's not on until you're fully alongside, you could end up making contacts, and could that be enough to push you to the drive-through limit? Well, we will see. But still, looking a bit further back, as that is Ryan Abbott's recovering. No, that's not Ryan Abbott's recovering. That is Charlie Stoffard recovering for a big off there. And coming out of Westfield Bend, well, he was 4 places ahead. He was all the way up in 22nd. That's where Andre Montaigne is now. And here is the Axis Ice Machine, who right now is trying to keep everybody behind him as we look to the rear of the number 115. Now 17th in the Premier class at this point. He does have the buffer of Ryan Abbott's and Evo drive between himself, Ian King and Charlie Stoffard, and that'll be helpful to him, with King and Stoffard breathing down his neck previously. But Abbott's right now pushing on as much as possible as Montaigne, trying to break the toe one way then the other, but also I believe trying to fight after Tio Reza as they roar off the hill. And there you can see the 93 in front as we now look to the nose bumper camera of the Romanian Acura, and well, as he roars his way for the right hander here, staying nice and close to the 93 in BMW, but then the traction off of these low-speed corners. We did see that the Acura was incredibly strong on the straights, or at least the banking at Daytona. But here today, we haven't got long corners. Indeed, we've got a lot of downforce being applied to the car, and it'll be a very different story compared to a minimum downforce circuit only a week ago. But as he chases after the Evo 93, no gains there coming out to Surtees, and I think he may now just be waiting for an opportunity, perhaps later in the lap, particularly on that GP loop, where the Acura's mid-engine real-drive nature may just give him the ability to carry a couple more miles an hour speed from Hawthorns all the way to Stirling's Bend, and that may, depending on how well he does, be the difference as they roar the way outwards. In fact, a very good run there through Westfield, and Reza looking quite vulnerable here as they head in towards the next set of corners, and I wonder whether Reza being a bit close is going to cause the team to back off. Yes, he does, and Abbott in fact gets so close he thinks about a potential move, only then not to go for it. So right now it really is a rock and a hard place for all four of these drivers in terms of whether trying to proceed and move forward, but also have to go defensive to the drivers behind as they all come to the end of this lap. But from them, let's look towards the front of the field, and this is James Bostock right now running in third place overall. Second in Premier Class, he takes a brief excursion there for a moment, coming out to turn number 3, uses all the width for the corner and a little bit more, with Hussein at Circa Dessler in the Summit GP2 McLaren, staying right there with him as they head on towards Pilgrim's Drop. But right now, Bostock, to be fair to him, looking to be the runner-up here in the Premier Class, and put a very solid job. But Rob Smith in a bit of a world of his own at the moment, 6 seconds up the road between the two of them. Evo leader Steve Rubino for the Hobo Racing BMW outfit, so no changes there. Indeed, our top 6 at the moment looking very evenly matched, and John Ludbrook here in the Car-Made GP2 Porsche trying to get closer to his teammate of Bostock, albeit they have got some traffic between the two of them, albeit that is lead lap traffic. But right the way on through, we do say hello again to Andrew Chell, who gives us an update there for the pit lane to say the car's got way too much damage on it. Race one done for me. I'm very sorry to hear that, Andy. We did see the first of, well, in fact, we caught both your incidents in the end as to lead into that damage, but very sorry to see how it all played out for you, and hopefully much better luck in race number 2, because indeed you deserve some luck here today at Brands Hatch. We don't want to see it ended in tears for a second time today, a bit later on. We also say hello there to Stephen at Codford, who's cheering on Mark Johnson and cheering on the move that was made there by Johnson versus Martin Kenyon. But a bit further back, Dean Sheesby looking for a potential move there versus Robin Aston, but as well how to go defensive versus George Stone. And that BMW, well, it's definitely had a bit of a bruising earlier on, particularly if my memory serves me correctly, the move that was made here into Druids earlier on, where it was quite a far back move on Matthew Hunter, unless I'm mistaken, 2 MRC cars for each other. I'm not being unknown to do that, to be fair, so I do apologise in advance. But Sheesby right now heading out of the corner there and looking very compact, that BMW. You can see in the way it's rotating out these corners. It looks as though, as much as other drivers are using all the exit of the corner, plus a little bit more in order to carry the speed, for Sheesby, that BMW just turns through the corner and lights up immediately. It is looking very, very well set up. And that is why he's able to carry so much speed behind the Porsches in front of him, and able to match them so well with corner exit speed. It is looking incredible as he thinks about moving to Westfield. He is getting closer and closer, Sheesby, as we ride aboard here from inside the car. And the Moonshiners Racing Club driver is absolutely on a mission here to try and find at these places if he can. But the problem is he gets this close, and the next question is, and what's next? Because he's got to have a really good run out of a corner to get alongside. He gets a lovely run there coming out of Stirling's, but you can see that it's going to be Aston who puts in the middle road. Sheesby goes up the inside, squeezes his nose in there. That's what you've got to do. You've really got to get tucked in. And well, now it's going to be a drag race here up towards Paddock Hill Bend, who had the inside line, but look at Stone. Stone decides to place his bets, tucking in behind the car of Aston, and Sheesby in the end has to go defensive. Stone looks for a cutback move. It's not going to happen. And well, Aston just able to outdrag that BMW to the braking zone, but back up the inside he goes, and Sheesby absolutely nails it on the brakes, gets it stopped to the time there. But Aston's now going to come back and looking around the outside to the inside into Graham Hill Bend. 2 wide to go. It's very tricky there to be on the inside. Sheesby runs a bit deep, but he uses that width of the corner in order to be able to stay ahead, and Robin Aston loses the place at the end. And a lovely battle between the two, but it's not over yet, because George Stone now says, okay, my turn, and Robin Aston says, no you don't. He absolutely nails the exit there of Surtees Bend. Stone meanwhile on that inside line, compromised exit understanding, because he can't power out the corner, he has to hold off the throttle, and Stone made to fall backwards. But great fighting between them, and that's Dean Sheesby now up into 9th place in Premier, and what equates to overall 11th place. from them, we've got more happening on, and this is further down the order. It's Pete Piper in the Ford Mustang, the only Ford Mustang represented here today. Indeed, our American manufacturers not being represented there by many drivers here in Split B this season. And well, the Ford Mustang right now, Pete Piper, it definitely stands out like a sore thumb, but that's a good thing for the Earth Racing machine. And the 111 gets ahead of Sean Clark there. That's a change of overall position, not class position, given the fact we are looking at a Premier driver passing an Evo driver, but still good work there from Piper. And now, after Denny Ploger goes, because keep in mind that both Piper and Rice behind him, they are both having to pit their way through an extended Evo field if they want to go hunting after the next Premier driver of 20th place man of Benno Blom in said class. And that's much easier said than done when you've got Evo drivers who are very much on the pace. But speaking of an Evo driver who's on the pace, he's running 6th right now. He's been one of the unsung heroes of the start of this race, in fact. Craig Tillotson for Runner Academy. He's got Jordan Maymar close behind him, but let's give him a little bit of praise for a minute. The accurate NSX Evo driver, he started all the way down in 9th place in class and was 30th overall. He's in 24th overall and now up into 6th, albeit goes a bit deep there, and Jordan Maymar says, I'll take that, thank you very much. I wonder whether Tillotson perhaps let that go intentionally there in order to respect the fact he expects that Maymar will be a much faster driver and the Ferrari driver struggled in qualifying, but Tillotson, while they're smart drivers, he looks at previous round results and recognises the fact that sometimes drivers don't always qualify as well as they plan to, and therefore he sometimes just lets the faster drivers go because he knows he wants to get those points on the board. He's not competing necessarily for the Evo Championship in his mind, but the idea is he's competing to improve himself, and he'll improve by following a faster driver around the circuit. So good on Craig Tillotson, because he's enjoyed himself out there, and right now he's got a nice gap of the best part of 10 seconds to Alex Boniface, a driver he would be battling with, and well, it'll be the battle for 7th place if Boniface was able to get close enough, said in Evo class. But from them, we take a look back a bit further up the order, and hold up a second, that's a nasty sight. That is, I believe, a car that's got around. That's Sammy Ariba, who's had it go very wrong. What's happened to Mission R Porsche? Because for a brief moment they're in the wrong direction of Ross Norswell, who was caught up in that. Do we have a replay to explain? Yes, we do. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. This might tell us a story. Now, Sammy Ariba was in front a lap down at this point, making his way through Sheen Curve then. It takes a lot of apex curve, but a poor run, and Ross Norswell, he carries too much speed up behind him, doesn't realise that Ariba was going to go slowly there, and taps right into the back of it, and then they all try to get off the circuit, hold their positions, and that explains why we saw Porsche looking in the wrong direction. I think right now Ariba trying to find reverse gear here to get himself off of the tarmac, because he's hoping, I think, as well that he could turn it around, but then realising the field's going to keep on coming. Nightmare moment, but they were able to survive it, albeit losing the rear wing of the car. We're reversed into the tyre barrier. So unfortunate incident there between Norsworthy and Ariba, just a misinterpretation of speed between the two of them. But let's not misinterpret the battling that's going on between Ian King and Thiago Reza, as Reza right now 5th place Evo driver trying to pick up another overall position for 20th place here. He's on a crusade as the Brazilian driver, but King right now trying to make sure that he's able to enjoy his own race there in the HH Racing machine. Lovely livery, that one indeed. There's something about McLaren cars, orange and black, where it's in the Formula 1 machines or indeed the GT3 machines. It just absolutely goes down a treat. It must be the papaya syndrome of the car. But as they head in towards turn number 8 and outwards, well, right now Ian King absolutely under pressure here from the BMW behind, and Reza looking close. He looks one way then the other, but can't quite find his way at this time. Now we do say hello there to Securia 566, who's cheering on Samuel Clark, and in terms of where Clark is at the moment, that's Clark with an E and not without it. Here is Samuel Clark. We haven't really talked about him too much other than an early instant where he ended up falling down a lot of places. Well, here he is right now chasing after Austin Graff with Denny Ploger only at 1.2 seconds behind. But as they head down towards turn number 9, anything can happen between these two, and the 22 driver here enjoying what is looking to be a much happier race now that all the incidents are out of the way and the fast repair has been put onto the car. He came in for that about 10 laps ago, and well, Graff is not getting away. In fact, if anything, I think Clark is getting a bit closer to him here. And well, as we do jump aboard the car, looking down over the front of it, can we get the relative lap times between the two drivers? We might be able to get an idea of the lap history between them, and well, that does appear on screen very shortly as he gets very close on the exit. And here it is, and as we can see, in fact, Clark over the last couple of laps, for lap number 14 there was a bit of an incident that put Clark backwards, but for the most part Clark has been the faster driver of the pair, and well, into the braking zone they come, and that's going to be Graff going very deep there intentionally to try and find a late apex, but doesn't get quite right. Denny Ploger is also with them, but these three are very close together in terms of those lap times at the moment. But it does look as though Clark, if he's able to put a good lap down, he might be able to make this move happen, and I get the feeling it's going to be a question of when, not if, he's able to get close enough to consider that move. But as we wait for that to potentially materialise, as soon as I say that, he gets very close into Westfield, but has to back off, such the natural concertina effect. But that is going to be a poor run through Westfield for Graf, and that's going to put Clark right over the back in there as they make the way over Sheen Bend. And well, right now, Austin Graf going a little bit defensive there, but the Axis Sports Ice Driver, now he doesn't have to go fully defensive because of how narrow the back loop of the circuit is. But here comes Clark, he gets closer and closer. Will he go for under braking? He looks up the inside, but it's now compromised line, but Graf goes deep as a result, so it will neutralise the gains that Graf could have made. Samuel Clark definitely trying to bite off this place, but in the battle for 10th place in the Evo class, nothing between these two as they roar the way onto another lap here, and Clark gets a better run. Surely he's got to have a run of it this time. 2 tenths to close. He's got a huge overspeed. Yes, he's going to go for it here, and well, Graf's going to see it coming. Clark up the inside, and Graf will look for the momentum around the outside here, but that is going to go the way of Samuel Clark, and Clark up into 30th, 10th place in Evo, I should say. Lovely move, and now he's got to try and find another 7 seconds to ride Alberts, but before he does, he runs wide there coming out of Grand Hill Bend. Graf thinks about going back up the inside of him. Not so, and Samuel Clark will seal the deal in that position as he powers his way onwards. Just up the road, by the way, Alex Boniface is under pressure for 8th place in Evo, with Ryan Abbott's breathing down his neck, but as they roar the way out of the corner, well, right now, let's give it a poor run for Boniface, and that will release Abbott's up into 8th. But we need to look from further down the order to a bit further up the order because we've got some more fighting to come. As we've got 6 minutes left on the clock, Steve Rabido here, your Evo leader, really right now, the Evo in amongst all the Premier drivers at the front and looking to try and make it the runner-up overall here, which if so, well, I've not heard that we've ever had an Evo overall winner in the history of the Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Championship from what I recall, but I'm sure some of the historians will correct me on that one, but we have had a couple of Evo podium finishers, and Steve Rabido is going to add himself to the history books on that one, because right now, James Bostock, Hussein Sarakadesla and Mark Johnson are all queued up behind him, with John Ludbrook and Martin Kenyon falling a bit off the pace by comparison, it would seem. Albeit perhaps they're prioritising position right now for race number 2 and looking to get considerable points consolidated across both races at Brands Hatch. It's always a sensible strategy. If you don't think you can make any more progress, and then back off the throttle slightly and just take it nice and easy and get those points home. But of course you don't want to be too far away because if some drama should happen in front, then suddenly you won't be in the place to pick up all the points. Change of place here, Jordan Maybart up the inside of Ross Norsworthy. That's the Simcast Racing UK driver, not posing for a photo but swapping places, and I think Norsworthy respect to the fact that Maybar's got more pace at this point in the race distance and wanting to move on. And in fact, a historian comes out there immediately in the form of Andy Chell, saying that he won the last race of season 7, and I believe he would have been in the Evo class at the time, so thank you Andy, immediately there. See, I'm not 100% clocked in with a history yet, I do try to remember, but that goes to show there that we have had Evo overall winners before, and Andy Chell being a fine exhibition of it. But as we come back to what's being exhibited on our screen, 4.5 minutes left to go here, and Robin Aston finding own Seward breathing down his neck, and this is such a different complexion from what we saw last time out at Daytona. Aston just not here on the pace as Martin Kenyon, oh no, and the nightmares of Daytona have come back to haunt Martin Kenyon because that is a spin, and for Martin Kenyon, he's suddenly fallen all the way from 7th place overall, all the way down to 14th, and Mateusz Smolny, who was running in 15th, now has a little bit of a double-edged sword sitting in front of him. Because if he finishes 15th, he starts at pole for race number 2. But the problem is, he can pick up some places and points here for Martin Kenyon by going for 14th. He's going to go for it here. He wants the points, and I think he feels as though he can take the lead in race number 2 as well, starting 14th. And up the inside of Kenyon he goes, and Smolny moves into 14th place there, right at the close. But what a lovely move there from Smolny. And to be fair, Kenyon not fighting it too hard. I think right now thinking to himself, I can't let Daytona happen again, which is he had one spin, albeit it was a major shunt to the wall, but he then subsequently had a spin, and the car kept spinning after that point because the Audi is very sensitive to overheated tyres, and after that it all went to the barriers for Martin Kenyon. But right now, Robin Pownier saying in the Corvette, you know, I fancy my chances on Martin here, and well, behind him we do have a lap down car trying to give a follow pursuit, and I believe that is the Corvette that is a lap down, unless I'm mistaken. No, that is a McLaren there, and that is Grant Miller's McLaren, who is right on the back of the pair of them, the Evo driver, who right now just being made to watch because he is a lap down, and well, he'd love to get involved there, but the blue flags would wave as soon as he gets ahead. But 3 minutes left, and with that, well, the places now definitely, in terms of their fights, all coming back together. But just before we do come to the fights further up the order, we need to take a look at what triggered Martin Kenyon's spin. And this was the replay coming down in towards turn number 3, through hill corner, the rear of the car hitting the apex curb there. A very That felt as though it was a slow motion spin. In fact, I think in the end the car started to come loose a little bit over the crest of the curbing of turn number 3. And Kenyon in the end trying to get the power down. The car just saying, you know what, I just can't do this, Martin. I'm going around there. But very odd spin. Now, I thought he was just making the corner normally, but perhaps just a tiny bit more steering lock than he wanted to have there. And perhaps that caused it. We come back to your live race. A very interesting one. Indeed, a gradual spin, not like the ones we have seen over the course of the racing today. But on the live pictures, and it's going to be Paunia versus Kenyon for 15th place as they try to bring everything to a close. But from these drivers, well, we've still got more to come. And speaking of more to come, well, we look to your race leader. He's a bit lonely, to be fair, right now, and he hasn't had much entertainment since the start of the race, and qualifying and pole. Rob Smith is absolutely flying out there, 6 seconds clear. And well, the big question is, it's the big Q for P2, and it's going to be Steve Rubino, your Evo class leader, who holds on to it at this time. But will Bostock or will Sarah get close enough to get involved here? Because Rubino's going to be a bit compromised there as he takes a very tight line coming on through Surtees Bend. Well, to be fair to the driver who was a lap down there, couldn't quite discern who it was. They had nowhere else to go, so good awareness from them to put it on the outside of Surtees. And will Bostock right now is going to go around the outside of Hawthorns. That's going to be very, very touchy close. But in the end, it does make it around the outside with Sarah close behind him. And we'll understandably, everyone tries to negotiate the situation as best they can. But Sarah there, well, the Super GP2 driver has to get his elbows out slightly in order to make an impression, but finally gets on through, so it means that it's battle for second. Oh, that's a big spin there, and that is going to be a car going around immediately towed to the pits. I'm trying to understand who that was. I believe, well, I'm trying to understand who it was entirely. I'm not quite sure at the moment. We haven't had any information come up, but that was a big spin there, no doubt about it, from a McLaren driver and drama. But with drama, we head on to the final lap for our leaders, but further on back, Tigor Reza versus Jordan Maymar is the big question. Reza goes immediately defensive here, coming into Westfield Bend. This is for 5th place in the Evo class, and Reza right now find that Jordan Maymar is not going to sit back and watch as Andrew Benteen makes it too wide coming up the hill, but he backs off there into Sheen Curve. 9 at 2 does not go into 1 at Sheen at the best of times. Mark Johnson's into the pit lane as I look out my quarantine booth window, and Dean Sheesby as well. I wonder if we've got some drivers of underfueled here and didn't expect it to be getting the 22nd lap in. There's some absolute drama out there, no doubt about it. Either that or it's drive-through penalties. Well, Sheesby, it's a drive-through penalty. He did not stop. Johnson, he's had to take a stop. I wonder if there's an issue with the car. Well, that's a surprise and not a welcome one to be certain. And with those surprises, are there any more to come? Well, we will have to wait and see with open eyes and open ears, because it could be anything but as Tigor Reiser tries to hold on to 5th place in Evo right at the close. But as he rolls his way out the hill, well, we look from him and see the drivers further up the order, and in the hold up a second, we just looked away for a brief moment for what was happening there, and Tigor Riser's had a spin at the Druids Bend. Well, we'll have to try and dissect that very shortly, but we can't at the moment, because as we were about to look up in the battle to second place, Steve Rubino is keeping James Bostock and Hussein Sarkadesla behind, but at the front of the field, it was an incredible pole lap by the best part of a couple of attempts. But for Rob Smith right now, it's going to be pole position converted to victory in race number 1 here of the day at Brands Hatch, because Rob Smith is your Premier and overall winner by 4 seconds over Evo winner Steve Rubino, who holds on to second overall. James Bostock will take 3rd place, second in Premier, and the Premier podium will be completed by Hussein Sarkadesla at the line. 5th to John Ludbrett ahead of Liam Yuniso, and then Jonathan Berry will be runner-up in Evo, and an absolutely brilliant drive in the Mercedes for Missionar ahead of Mark De Vries, with Robin Aston and Owen Seward completing your top 10. And 3rd place in Evo, brilliant job from him. Mateusz Smolny will finish ahead of Martin Kenyon and Robin Paunia, with Andrew Fellows and George Stone round off your top 15, with Stone there taking pole position for race number 2. It's Robert Savage who takes 4th in Evo ahead of Rob Mackay, Dean Sheesby and none other than Ian King, with Ross Norswell finishing 20th there. And 5th place in Evo goes to Craig Tillerson. That's Jordan Maymar. He's running out of fuel at the line, or is he? No, he's giving the place back there to Diego Reiser. I think the two came into contact at Druids Bend, and that's what we missed. But Tillerson picks up the piece and picks up a 5th place for his grace. What a job from him for Honor Academy. We then had Andrew Montine coming out the pit lane there in 24th ahead of Menno Blem, and we've still got a few more drivers on the lead lap to come through. Give them all a round of applause. They deserve it. Austin Graff there in at 28th place, 10th in Evo. Good job from him ahead of Denny Plager, who made his way through the field, did Denny. And then we had, completing your lead lap finishing order, Pete Piver in the Ford Mustang, who gained 9 places in the sole Mustang here today ahead of Danny Ware, who took 13th 31st place in the end. But we need to take a look back very quickly at what happened to Reza versus none other than Jordan Maymar. And here's the quick replay. Well, in fact, we can't get a replay, unfortunately, ladies and gents, because we are skipped forward to the warm-up session there. We would have loved to, but I suspect Jordan Maymar may have made some contact with Reza on the inside into Druids, and that's why he gave the place back in the end. And fair play to him, gentlemen, in racing. But whilst we've got to have a 5-minute breather, let's take your way through the race results, subject to any Druids inquiries. And here they are. And well, as we can see, overall, it was Rob Smith for Flatline Racing who took victory ahead of Hobo Racing Steve Rubino and James Bostock rounding off your top 3 there. A brilliant job from our Premier winner and overall winner, and also for Rubino for being our Evo winner, 2nd place there, and only 4 seconds off at the close. Hussein Sarkadesta finished 4th there for Suma GP2 Racing ahead of Kame GP2's John Ludbrook, and then it was Liam Ioniso, 6th place there in the BMW M4 that really came alive in the late stages of the race, as did Jonathan Berry's Mercedes, finishing 7th and 2nd place at Evo with it for Mission R. We then did have Sim Racing Team Lowlands, Mark De Vries there in 8th ahead of Kame GP2 Race's Robin Aston, who despite a qualifying performance made his way up through the order quite nicely in the race, and Owen Stewart completed your top 10 there for DXT Motorsports by ORA. Mateusz Smolny was 11th for Mission R ahead of Martin Kenyon for Axis Sport Ice, who the spin of the Audi once again catching him out, but still inside at the top 15 and part of that reverse grid, with Robin Powney in 13th place for Sim Coach ahead of Andrew Fellows for Flatline Racing, and George Stone there with 15th place for Mission R powered by Mords. He will take reverse grid pole for race number 2. Robert Savage was 16th, unfortunate to miss out on reverse grid pole, but still a lovely 4th place finish there in the Evo class for Mission R, ahead of Rob Mackay, Dean Sheesby, Ian King and Ross Norsworthy. And coming all the way through the order, and we won't dwell on it for too long because the points are scored in class. Well, we can see there a grand total of what was our top 32 drivers finishing on the lead lap, with Andrew Montine demoted to 32nd for Axis Sim Sports Ice. And I wonder if that's due to him coming into the pit lane right at the end of the race. It was a lap down for 33rd onwards, and Stuart Rice being the first of many a driver who was a lap down for Blue Sky Esports ahead of teammate Rachel Hugh. And then it came to 2 laps down there for Mark Johnson and Daniel Paul, who was 40th, 3 laps down to Charlie Stoffard, and 5 down to Ryan Abbott's in 42nd place. And then we did see some retirements in the race, including Eddie Theobald, or I believe he was classified as a non-finisher for being 8 laps down. That may not have been a retirement, but we did have retirements for Sammy Ariba, Philip McConaughey, James Pallett, Klaas Vellen, Andy Chell and Michael Evangeli. But then coming on to the individual finishing positions, this is where all the points and the prizes are made. And we can see here in the Premier class, Rob Smith taking an absolutely brilliant victory by 6 seconds for Flatline Racing ahead of James Bostock. The Kame GP2 Racing driver in the end fended off the charge of Hussein Sarkadesla, who made some great progress later on in the race, did the Turkish driver, and was a mid-engine rear-wheel drive top 3, with the Suma GP2 Racing driver being followed up by the Kame GP2 Racing machine John Ludbrook, who couldn't quite get close enough to be on that podium. Liam Ioniso finishing 5th there at the privateer, a solid effort for the BMW driver ahead of Mark De Vries, with the Sim Racing Team Lowlands driver 3 seconds behind or so from Ioniso, and 3 seconds ahead of Robin Aston. From the Kame GP2 Racing machine, it was then Mateusz Smolny in 8th ahead of Martin Kenyon, with only a second between the two of them, and Robin Powney completing your top 10. From the Corvette of Pioneer, it was an Andrew Fellows best of the rest for Flatline Racing ahead of Mission R powered by Maud's George Stone, with Rob Mackay's Dexterous Motorsport Zemex McLaren fend off the charge of Moonshiners Racing Club Dean Sheesby right at the end. Ian King finished off the Premier Top 15 for HH Racing ahead of Ross Norsworthy, with Menno Blom, Pete Piver, Danny Ware, and then Andrew Montine completing the Premier Top 20. It was a lap down to Stuart Rice, and for Mark Johnson, 2 laps down, a frustrating end to his race. And we also had frustration 3 laps down to Charlie Stoffard, and the retirements of James Pallett and Klaas Vellum. Coming to the Evo class, last but by no means least, and we saw Steve Rubino take victory in Evo by a staggering 10 seconds there for Hobo Racing over Mission R powered by Maud's Jonathan Berry, and Owen Stewart picking up the pieces on the final spot of the podium there in 3rd. From the DXT Motorsports by ORA driver, it was then Robert Savage in 4th for Mission R Esports ahead of Craig Tillotson, the Verona Academy driver there, demonstrating that sometimes you just got to be in the right place to pick up the points, and what a drive from him for his first top 5 of the season, and indeed I think plenty more going to come for him. Ahead of Tigo Reza for 9 Pegasus Pantera, who in the end, after being turned, as we understand it, by Jordan Maymar, at least what the camera suggested, Maymar giving the place back, and Maymar finishing just behind him in 7th for Simcast Racing Team UK. It was for 11 seconds to Samuel Clark, the Private 2, enjoyed some brilliant battling today so far, ahead of Alex Boniface, with the DXT Motorsports Zemex driver then being followed by Austin Graff for Axis Sim Sports Ice, who round off your top 10, and then we did have Denny Ploger, Sean Clark, and what was Rachel Hugh, Grant Miller, Matthew Hunter round off the top 15. Also lapped down to Barry Wenman, ahead of Oliver Fostrom, and then the field was completed by Daniel Daniel Paul, Ryan Abbots, and the non-finisher of Eddie Theobald, and the retirees of Sammy Ariba, Philip McConaughey, and that was how they all finished the race. But we've still got plenty more to come, of course, ladies and gentlemen, because race number 2 is only around the corner, and well, it's time then to head to the grid for our second race of the day. And as our drivers make their way to the grid for the race number 2 in the second of our 30-minute sprint races here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, this is how they line up with the top 15 finishing positions of race number 1 inverted. And as we can see, line up in pole position, George Stone there. It's an all-Premier front row for Mission R with Flatline Racing's Andrew Fellows joining him alongside. Robin Pioneer sets his day off in third place for Sim Coach, ahead of Martin Kenyon for Axis Sim Sports Ice, who'll be hoping that Audi he can make it a podium finish this time. Then on the third row of the grid, it'll be Mateusz Smolny for Mission R Esports, and he'll be in the company of none other than your Evo pole sitter Owen Stewart for DXT Motorsports by ORA. Starting 7th, Robin Aston for Carme GP2 Racing, and Mark DeVries alongside for Sim Racing Team Lowlands, with your top 10 completed by Jonathan Berry for Mission R powered by Mods, and Liam Uniso the Privateer. Starting 11th, John Lebret for Carme GP2 Racing, and can he have a bit more stable pace in this one? We will wait and see, because Hussein Sarkadesta will look to get past very quickly for Suma GP2 Racing if he can. James Bostock starts 13th for Carme GP2 ahead of Steve Rubino, and that was your winner of Evo in race number 1. Can he pull off some magic to make it 2 wins out of 2? We'll wait and find out for Hobo Racing. And 15th, Rob Smith, Flatline Racing's driver starts off your 8th row ahead of Robert Savage for Mission R Esports. And on the 17th, it'll be Rob Mackay for Dexterous Motorsports Zemix ahead of Dean Sheesby for Moonshiners Racing Club, and then completing your top 20, Ian King for HH Racing ahead of Ross Norsworth for Simcast Racing Team UK. Outside the top 20, starting on the 11th row of the grid, it'll be Craig Tillerson with the heroics of race number 1. Can the Rhino Academy driver repeat it for race number 2? He'll be ahead of 9 Pegasus Panteras at Tiago Reiser. Then we have Jordan Maymar, 23rd for Simcast Racing Team UK, ahead of Menno Blair for Sim Racing Team Lowlands. We'll be hoping race number 2 is a much happier race compared to race number 1. If not, Samuel Clark and Alex Boniface, the Dexterous Motorsports MX driver, will look to pick up the pieces off of him. On the 14th row of the grid, it'll be Austin Graff for Axis Sim Sports Ice, ahead of Denny Plugger for MJK Sim Racing, and Pete Piper for LS Racing, and Danny Ware for Dexterous Motorsports MX complete the top 30. Outside the top 30, it'll be 31st to Sean Clark for Dexterous Motorsports MX, ahead of Axis Sim Sport Ice's Andrew Mateen, and then we do have the pair for Blue Sky Esports, the teammates of Stuart Rice and Rachel Hugh, with 35th going to Grant Miller after misfortune in race number 1 for Phoenix Racing Red, ahead of Simcast Racing Team UK's Matthew Hunter, with Barry Wenman starting 37th for Dexterous Motorsports, ahead of Oliver Forstrom for Quatermass Motorsport, and your top 40 completed by Mark Johnson for Axis Sim Sport Ice and Daniel Paul for Flatline Racing. Outside the top 40, we've still got more drivers to come. Let's not forget about them. We do have there Charlie Stoffard for Phoenix Racing Red, ahead of Ryan Abbots for Team Nubish, and then it'll be Eddie Theobald, the Privateer, ahead of Mission R Sammy Ariba, with Philip McConaughey started 45th for Racing League Hub, ahead of James Pallett, his teammate. Klaas Vellen starts 47th for Penguin Racing Endeavours, ahead of Andy Chell for Quatermass Motorsport. And then we do have Michael Evangeli, last but not least, 49th on the grid. Well, as the field makes its way then to the final couple of quarters, ladies and gentlemen, race number 1 absolutely delivered for the fireworks, there was no doubt about it, and I suspect race number 2 is going to rinse and repeat the same. But the question is, who will be your winner this time out across our classes and overall? Well, there's only one way to find out. Get your heads down, ladies and gentlemen, and set one in, because it's time for race number 2, and George Stone will take us to the green. As he picks up the pace, it's go, go, go for George Stone, but does he get a good start? And the answer is he's got a lot of pressure from Andrew Fellows, and Fellows looking one way, then looking the other, but he's not going to be able to find it as Martin Kenyon immediately having to go defensive versus Pioneer. That's around there for Stone, he goes onto the gravel, so early drive for Stone, but as they head up towards the hairpin, we look to the blimp camera, and everyone now, 2 by 2 they come through, and it looks like Fellows might be getting some stability to this race. Some great gains there being made by Steve Rubino nice and early on. Further on back, Alex Boniface as well, a few places gained as all the field now concertines its way on through, and again battling there for the Blue Sky Esports pair of Rice and Hugh, but as they come to the end of the lap, well, there is Andy Chell, enjoyed a bit of an exchange there with one of his rivals, and in the end trying to make the progress on Daniel Paul, but will he be able to get it? Yes, he does, as he moves onwards, so good start there for Andy Chell as well. But as they head in towards Surtees Bend, we come back down to the close cameras, and as we do, there's still more fighting. Mateusz Smolny, well, he's had a good start there as he rolls his way out the corner, or has he? No, in fact he has, he's fallen back a bit quite far. And Smolny having a difficult start, but perhaps trying to settle down and perhaps letting the Porsche just gradually warm up here. And well, we did see that spin for Stone. I wouldn't be surprised if that was cold tyres and a little bit of energy and enthusiasm going a bit astray. But as all these drivers now start to go line astern, oh no, that's a very sideways burn. That's going to lead to a domino effect there. Cards to the worst, Rob Mackay, after we did see a turnaround there for one of our McLarens. We'll have to try and discern what exactly happened there, but Danny Ware in orbit will now battle with Ross Norsworthy as they pick the way through all the chaos and carnage coming out of Sheen Curve. Or Ware on the inside there of Norsworthy, but still too wide as they exit the corner. Norsworthy's going to try and carry it through. Off track goes Dean Sheesby. He rejoins. This will be briefly 3 wide for him. Surely they're not going to try and go 4 wide there. You don't at the best of times. And as they come across the timeline, well, Samuel Clark's up the inside of Norsworthy, and Clark goes for him. He taps the rear of Ware, and as a result, they've sent it sideways. Norsworthy goes sideways as well, comes across the circuit, and it all suddenly erupts right in front of us there as the cars scatter one way then the other. It's pandemonium heading up towards the hill, and that's a nasty place to be. And well, some drivers are going to survive it. Theobald's lost the front bumper, and well, Andy Chell comes up through the scene of the incident. The back half of the field is suddenly, well, it's going to be disaster for them all, and they'll have to try and pick up where they've left off. But this is going to completely shake and stir what is the bottom end of our top 50 drivers, in the fact that from 21st downwards, Sonny, that has all ended up in a bit of tears as Norsworthy car goes straight on there, and that's going to be towed to the pits. I can imagine there's a lot of damage on it. But from everything that's happened there to a more positive situation right now, Dean Sheesby is trying to pick up the pace again as he gets his way back past Boniface. And his next target will be Ware as they head up towards Westfield Bend, but drama there further on down as I see Securia 566 saying, oh Lord, with regards to everything that's happened. Indeed, that's an absolutely spot on reaction to say, for the very least. And as our drivers continue to head on through, well, drama there, and there's going to be some more fighting here, and that's going to be Mateusz Smolny making another place back up versus John Ludbrook, at least for now. But will he be able to make the place stand? Because Ludbrook's got a lot of speed on the outside coming out of the corner. Into turn 1 they go. Well, he'll feel about it as there's going to be Jonathan Berry defending versus Robin Pownier for 5th place overall. And Mateusz Smolny does get the deal sealed with John Ludbrook there. Moves up into 7th place as the 136 Porsche Mission R. Lovely move there from Smolny and absolutely nailing it on. And we are in the early stage of the race. We've got a long distance to go here over the 30 minutes. And therefore, it does mean that for all the drivers right now, there's plenty of battle still to be unfolding, and well, they may come later on the race. And Smolny, being a very smart driver here, picking them off one by one and trying to pick up what he lost at the start of the race distance. Denny Berger, meanwhile, in the very colourful liveried Porsche, the black with the green trace lines around it. Well, he chased after Boniface here, looking up the inside. This will be for 7th place in the Evo class. Can he find the move? And the answer is no, he can't, as Danny Ware has had a bit of a scare coming out of Surtees Bend, so he's going to fall down the order there. We'll try and get a replay of that when we can. But here right now, close, but not close enough to try and make the move on Boniface, just being made to wait once again. But from them, we've had a bit of drama. That's Andy Chell, who's ended up in a dismal display coming out of Surtees. I think there's been a bit of an altercation with Austin Graff between the two of them. Oliver Forstrom, meanwhile, survives the encounter and makes his way onwards. We've got definitely a lot to pick apart here with regards to everything that's happened, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see those two cars make their way into the pit lane and go for repair work, as we say hello to Andy Rooney there, who says, Sonny, I'm rather glad I couldn't make this week. Indeed, race number 1, it was quite tame in terms of everything that happened, but it only takes one domino to fall and they all go with it, and we saw it like a pack of cards all fall down there, or a house of cards I should say. But I hope you're doing well, Andy. We look forward to seeing you back on the grid for round number 3 in a week's time, presuming you can make it, of course. But coming back to the front of the field, well, your top 3 are as follows. It is Andrew Fellow still leading, with Martin Kenyon building the pace and getting closer. Then for your 2 Premier drivers, you do have Owen Seward, who is your Evo leader in 3rd, as he briefly makes his way through the camera. Robin Aston is in 4th. 2nd place, Evo Jonathan Berry is in 5th, ahead of Robin Pownier in 6th, Mateusz Smolny 7th, John Ludbrook 8th, Hussein Serka Dessler 9th, and then Mark De Vries completes your top 10 with Liam Yaniso in 11th place. And then it's Steve Rubino, your 3rd place Evo driver, who's under pressure there from James Bostock. Bostock looks up the inside, but he can't quite find it this time as we look back from the rear of the BMW in this battle, and the Hobo racing machine right now, well, looking very much settled on as they come down through the corner, and will Bostock falling backwards. But from them, which is a bit further up that road, we do have Yaniso here up the inside of De Vries, and he clears him going through a sheet curve, and De Vries back it off there. We have had Ludbrook get back ahead of Smolny again as the 2 went too wide coming down through Westfield Bend. And it looks like Smolny's trying to really make the move on Ludbrook, slightly off camera, but right now Ludbrook holding his ground as best he can. But indeed the battle inside this top 10 is enabling the top 3 in particular to gradually creep off into the distance. And well, that may mean that as a result we start to see this race really relegated to what is a brief fight for the podium, and everyone else has got to fight for the scraps outside of the podium. But that's the way it goes at Brands Hatch. Fighting costs time. But speaking of time to be made, Martin Kenyon here on a mission as we ride aboard the nose bumper of the 103. And right now he's close to Fellows, and well, all he's got to think to himself at this point is take your time. Don't overdrive the Audi. That's the one thing you can't do with this Audi R8 is drive it hard. If you do, it will come back to haunt you immediately. It is a very unstable car by default, Evo with the Evo 2 Aero package, which got rid of was aimed at getting rid of all the medium speed instability of the car. But right now Kenyon 9, as he sits inside the dirty air of the back of that McLaren 720S with dirty air, it changes the aero balance, it pitches the aero balance towards the rear of the car, and that means that suddenly this car leans very heavily through the corners, and that is where you can get all that instability coming through, and suddenly it can snap on you. As we see there, a bit of a mistake from Fellows, runs wide after breaking a bit too deep into the corner, and the McLaren carrying away. So Kenyon's got to look for the move here, looking in the inside. Well, if he goes for it here, it's bold. He doesn't quite pull it off. Our Insured, meanwhile, keeping Robin Aston behind. The top 4 are suddenly now starting to bear their fangs at each other, and in good time as well, as there's plenty more laps to come. But we've had some drama for Steve Rubino's had to be towed to the pits, and well, we would cut to replays, but everything that's going on right now, do we have an opportunity to? And the answer is we may not. Well, in all of this, Craig Tillerson is in full for the Evo. Well, right now, he's trying to hold off Jordan Maymar, who's looking up the inside. Tillerson let him go in race number 1, and I think he's going to do the same here in race number 2, or is he? Well, Maymar was given the door. He saw the opportunity. Tillerson pretty much invited him in, and then Maymar went, actually, you know what? If I try and go for that, I'm just going to end up going into the side of that Acura and deciding to park it back. But coming down in towards turn number 3, well, that's going to be where they stay for now at least, and we finally do get an opportunity to see what happened in some of the earlier stages of the race, particularly the open lap instant for George Stone. Now, this was George Stone's start here. A good start, but he was under pressure from Fellows early on. Cut to the outside, cold tyres, a bit of dirt on the outside of the circuit as well. The rear of the car came round, and by then he was a passenger in his own car and had to rejoin. So for George Stone, it was a price to pay right at the start of the race, and a very unfortunate one at that. Then later on lap number 1, we had this happen to Rob Smith. This was coming in towards Westfield Bend, battling one way then the other in that McLaren, and the Flatline Racing car losing the rear there on cold tyres. He headed over the apex curb and rolled onto the grass, but not back onto the circuit. Subsequently, we then had this for Robert Savage, as he was battling there with the Moonshiners Racing Club BMW Sheesby, and a small tap to the rear that sent it round, and that's when all the field pulled into the scene in the instant, and Rob Mackay went sideways the other way, and a bit of rallycross there to escape the carnage from the driver coming up, and that was one of our, I believe, our Simcast Racing UK cars. Subsequently, we then had this happen on lap number 2, and this will be a big bit of the steward's time being engaged, and that was where it all exploded in front of Pete Piver, and he came into the scene of the instant here. How did he do with it? Not too well, because a lot of drivers charged away into the instant, and well, Matthew Hunter caught up in that as well. Austin Graff, to name a few. Well, we call all that and all the carnage. And then a little bit later on, well, in fact, no, it was Stuart Rice also came into the scene of this, and well, just another exhibition from a different camera angle as to what happened. And Rice in the end went round the outside of it all, and then went straight into the front of a Simcast Racing UK car that was parked right in his way. And well, that's going to be a frustrating one. But in more recent news, what exactly happened? Well, the big question is, firstly, what happened to Andy Chell and Austin Graff? We did see a bit of coming together for them. This was then making their way out of Graham Hill Bend. We caught the tail end of it. It was Chell up the inside. Well, Chell lost the rear end, and it was not Graff with him, but Graff came to a standstill there. Oh, no! And then, well, Chell had his front bumper ripped off as Graff, meanwhile, parked on the outside. So Chell lost the rear of the car, and Graff did the right thing, which was stopped and steered clear, but drivers behind tried to cut past and took Chell's bumper off. And then this was Steve Rubino on lap number 5. He was running in 3rd place at the time in the in the Evo class, battling there with James Bostock. The rear of the car let go once, he got it back together, it let go twice, and Steve Rubino straight into the barrier. Can we get on board of that? Let's just listen in here, because I think he did everything he could to control it. Rear car let go, touched the apex curb, got it straightened, but then had to turn the steering wheel to make the corner again. And at that point, the BMW really was on the knife edge. And for Steve Rubino, it was his race into the barrier, and that car having to be towed to the pitch due to the shunt to the Armco. So those were your big instants from the opening 7 laps racing here in race number 2 of the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. And as we come back to your live racing pictures, place change wise, we haven't had too many since the replays. Thankfully, we didn't want to miss all the racing action there. But what is very noticeable is look how this top 10 is now compressing together, very much so. Andrew Fellows is doing a phenomenal job at leading at the front, Premier and overall, but Martin Kenyon is right there, putting the pressure on him. But Owen Stewart, the Evo leader, and Robin Aston, Premier third place man, they are compressing to this, and Jonathan Berry's also getting closer as well. My gut feeling says that if Fellows can keep this up, his strategy will be to force Kenyon back towards Stewart and force the two of them to fight over second, because naturally Stewart will then feel the pressure of Aston and Berry even more so behind him, and you naturally compress the field to fight each other. It's a valid tactic, so long as you're not driving dangerously to cause that compression. It's called driving defensively, and well, for Andrew Fellows, he's just got to keep this up. But it's a long time to go, still 18.5 minutes plus the final lap, and Martin Kenyon right now, we're seeing a very different Martin Kenyon in this race. He's taking it easy. He is not pushing that 103 Audi hard at all, because he knows if he pushes it, that is where the Audi bites back at him. He's just got to take it nice and smooth, and the pace of the car will gradually come to him. But further back, this is Samuel Clark up the inside of Alex Boniface. That is for 8th place at Evo. Smooth move there from Samuel Clark. A big dive to the inside, but to be fair, he was already alongside by the time they got to the braking zone and made it count. And Samuel Clark back on the rise here, up into 23rd overall, as Stuart Rice, meanwhile, around the inside there of Boniface, and compounded the woes for the 38 McLaren, and Lamborghini gains another place as well. Barry Wenman as well, he's recently made his way up the order, chased after Andrew Montine now, and the wounded Acura NSX of the Premier class has definitely got a lot of pace missing on the straights there, because Wenman is absolutely closing on him very quickly. Further behind, Sammy Ariba fighting side by side here with Sean Clark. Clark up inside there. Ariba trying to carry all the speed around the outside. And, well, it's going to be too wide here all the way to the close. Or is it? No, because Ariba's going to outpower Clark up towards Hawthorne's Bend. And Sean Clark just tucks into the toe line. That Daniel Paul and Austin Graff are not too far away and very eager to get into this fight as well. Also got Pete Piver in a Ford Mustang that has been fast repaired quite recently. Well, he's fighting there with Steve Rubino, but Rubino gets ahead of him after towing into the pits and then making his way back onto the circuit. But blue flags are waving, because we do have the lead pack filled in amongst all this, and that is Robin Aston side by side with Owen Stewart in the battle for third overall. Can he finally get it done at the 4th time of trying here? And the answer will be yes, no, maybe, I don't know. Can you repeat the question, as Malcolm in the middle will once say? And Robin Aston does get it done in the end. He goes around the outside, but really had to work it there. And Owen Stewart, I think, wanted to keep that fight going, because Jonathan Berry's now right there with him. But speaking of battles that are right there with each other, Martin Kenyon's looking there to the inside here, in towards Hawthorne's, and right now really putting that pressure on Fellows. He's taking these little snippets, and right now Fellows is starting to feel even more worries behind him. But from them, well, we come back to Berry, who's getting much closer here as they run their way down through Dingle Dale. Ryan Powney and John Ludbrook are watching on there, the 4th and 5th place Premier drivers, looking at the two leaders in Evo, and this is a big scrap here for 4th place overall. Well, the fact that Tigo Reyes is all the way down in 15th place tells you the fact they really will feel the confidence here. They can scrap for the Evo win for practically the rest of this race, because Reyes is 11.5 seconds back the last time we checked. There's a long gap between them, but on to another lap they come. We're heading towards the halfway point here, and Berry's close, but he hasn't right now shown signs of wanting to make the move in haste. And I think here we're seeing a very smooth pace and race from Jonathan Berry. He knows he's got a lot of pace at his fingertips. He knows based on qualifying and race number 1, he's got the pace to beat Owen Stewart. But right now, he doesn't need to do anything too adventurous here. He just work that Mercedes gradually forward. Meanwhile, behind, Liam Yaniso up the inside there, Mark De Vries, and Mateusz Smolny tries to go with him. Then De Vries says, no, you can have one. And no, I think there might have been some contact there between Yaniso and De Vries. We'll have to try and see what happened there shortly, but that was an ejection outstage right for Liam Yaniso on the exit of Graham Hill Bend. And De Vries gets the place back, but was there contact or was there a mistake from the BMW driver? We will see shortly, because De Vries carries on here in the sim racing team Lowlands Porsche. There's no sign of visible damage on the front right side from the driver's perspective. Front left on the camera for a view there, but that doesn't mean to say there wasn't a bit of contact between the two of them. We will try and find out when we can. As meanwhile, it's pandemonium here as Liam Yaniso comes back into the BMW pack, because he's now one of 3 BMWs, all fighting over 14th place overall, and that is Tigo Reza, your Evo at 3rd place man. Then it's going to be Dean Sheesby, your 13th place Premier driver. But the BMW pack here, with Jordan Maymar right on the back of them, they're all very eager to move forward, and well, we have seen that eagerness portray itself multiple times today, as that is a lot of momentum being carried through Sterling's there. Good Lord, Tigger Rise. I don't know what he did to that corner there, but I'll tell you one thing, whatever everyone else was doing, he was going about 3 miles an hour faster, and it shows based on the speed of the camera. But indeed, Sheesby here now battling with Jordan Maymar, trying to go around the outside of it here. And, well, the Ferrari driver's seen an opportunity, and I say go on, Jordan, as he makes his way to turn number 1, because this is some very brave stuff for the Ferrari driver, but boxed in slightly there by the lap down forward of Pete Piver. And, well, that means Sheesby will take the place back, and Maymar just hedging his bet on the wrong side of the circuit. But what a load of momentum there, and credit where it's due to Sheesby knowing exactly where to put the car in order to make sure that he could gain the place back by gaming the blue flag system, essentially. But that's sometimes what you've got to do. You've got to be smart with how the traffic appears in front of you. But with all of this, we've got to try and find out firstly what exactly happened to De Vries versus none other than Yaniso, and we look back to this replay, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this was their battle coming down out of the corner. De Vries at the time onto the inside here, onto the brakes. Went to the inside there, and it looks like there was a bit of a tap there. He went to the dive to defend versus the car behind him of Smolny, but in turn, of course, making that contact. But as we come back to your live pictures for a brief moment, we did have a big instant for Craig Tillerson as well. He was running at the time in the top 5 of Evo, and this is what happened to Craig Tillerson only moments ago. And, well, in fact, that is a second instant there for Tillerson. The car's limping along. What on earth has happened to him? Well, we've got a quick replay to explain that one, because here is the replay. Tillerson's woes, well, they were confounded there, but what started them? This was heading into Hawthorne's, and the rear of the car just letting go for Tillerson. My goodness, well, that was completely unexpected. No visible damage on the car, but just let go there. And, well, nightmare moment, and suddenly losing all those places he worked hard for. And, well, into the barrier, the rear right of the suspension. You can see how much it's collapsed, and the bodywork there, and Tillerson's race ending up in tears very quickly indeed. But we return to your live racing, so it went wrong for Tillerson, but a good thing we turned back to your live racing in time, because Martin Kenyon's going to have another pop at this versus fellows for the overall lead, with Robin Aston right behind them. And whilst all this has happened, Jonathan Berry has found his way into the lead of the Evo class. We'll get a replay of that in the near future, but that is a very quick move there by Jonathan Berry to make up the place. We will try and get a replay of that when we can, but as we can see here, Andrew Fellows right now feeling that pressure from Kenyon, and, well, with the brief pause in that pressure, we now have the replay of Berry taking the lead of the Evo class, and this was only moments ago. Into Paddock Hill Bend they went. Seward went very defensive there. Berry cut back and carried all the speed up the hills. The sparks flew, and well, Seward tried to close him down the inside, but Berry had got himself into a position to look for the move. Seward in the end, respect to the fact that Berry was there, and Berry with a classic move up the inside into Druids Bend, just powering his way into the lead of the race. We said all he was waiting for was the prime opportunity, and he sought it there immediately. Lovely move from Jonathan Berry, and well, Owen Seward now falling backwards a little bit as he taps there by a second. It sends him to the gravel. He avoids the barrier, but he's pointing the wrong way, and Owen Seward in what was looking to be a guaranteed Evo podium. And now, well, he will return to the circuit still in second place at Evo, given the fact that Tigger Rez is a long way back, but suddenly it was looking to be a comfortable top 10 overall. It is now looking to be a top 15, presuming he can get the car back into trim. But it did a frustrating moment there for Seward. I think he'll feel as though that was unwarranted, but still, drivers' opinions, that's opinions, and well, the stewards will be the judge of the fact after the race. But as all drives carry on, well, 11 minutes still on the clock here, and even more drivers surely to come before all is said and done. There's been some absolutely superb race there at Brands Hatch so far today, and I think we're still due some more superb racing, as we see Mateusz Smolny with James Bostock right behind him. And these two, well, we could expect plenty of sparks between them, given the fact that Bostock has been absolutely lightning on pace here, and Smolny, despite some difficulties in qualifying, his race pace has been much stronger by comparison. So anything could happen between them before all is said and done, as we do say hello there to Joe in the YouTube chat, and also to Mac Attack, and I believe we said hello to everybody who's dropped some messages. But if you're sat there right now and you haven't said anything, don't be shy, feel free to say hi, let us know who you're cheering on, what has been your favourite moment of the race as well. In the meantime, we're always happy to hear what your thoughts are. But as we come back to the leaders then, well, it's the Fellows Kenyon battle, and Kenyon looked for it that time. You could see Fellows left that as late as possible to shut the door. If he had been even a microsecond later, I think Kenyon there would not have been able to react in time and make his way back onto the racing line. And this is now starting to get very nitty-gritty between the top two, and it is bringing Aston and Berry right into the mix as we ride on board and look back from the rear of your race leader. to give credit where it's due to, fellows, he is playing the defensive game absolutely spot on. And here comes Aston. He's looking around the outside of Kenyon then. So the second place battle now takes centre stage. But you'll look at it from the leader and heading into Hawthorne's Bend. It's 2 away between them. Kenyon's going to hold the position for now. But as they head onwards then towards Westfield, well, where's it going to go? Aston looks around the outside. This is brave stuff for Aston. He's going to go for it all the way down through Dingle Dell. Kenyon's still there. You can see Berry right now hedging his bet. They make contact. And as they come through the corner, it's going to be out wide there for Aston. But neither tries backing off. And Berry takes one. He takes two. Jonathan Berry sneaks up through and takes second place. But wait, it's not done yet because here comes Aston again. Kenyon defends the outside here. He forces Aston to have to back off in towards Clearways. And as they roll the way through Clark Curve, Robin Powney is now right in the mix. There's Ludbrett, there's Sarah Dessler. It's absolutely phenomenal as they roll the way onto another lap. They've still got plenty of time to sell things here, and I don't think it's going to settle until the final lap because Aston comes back again here in Kenyon right now. He gets the gloves on and says, right, if you want to go toe-to-toe, you're going to have to be able to take some punches because they roll the way into Drury's Bend, and it's all to play for between them. And Powney in the Corvette is watching this right now and thinking, what if I could do a job for Berry at this point? We should just simply sneak my way through, because if Berry and all of that just simply saw that the two Premier drivers were going to take each other off the road and said, well, whilst you guys are scrapping for it, I'm going to go for second place instead. But up the hill they go and in towards fourth as they roar the way through the left-hander of Surtees Bend. Will Berry right now under huge pressure from Kenyon, and Kenyon is coming back at this Evo driver absolutely ferally right now, and I don't think ferally is a word in the dictionary right now, but we put it there, Sunny, so Cambridge Dictionary is going to have to add that one in, because right now Martin Kenyon, well, I think for all the calm in that Audi, well, he's going to be unleashed onto the circuit right now. It's that V10 as he roars his way down through Dingle Dell, but coming up the hill towards Sheen, nothing between him at the moment. And Jonathan Berry at this point, well, all he's got to do in this Mercedes is make it as inhumanly wide as possible and just keep the rest of the Premier drivers behind you. You can see how they're all queuing up on each other, with Aston carrying so much speed there into Sterling's Bend and practically tapping and nudging on the rear of Kenyon, because Powney's doing the same to him, Ludbrick's doing the same to Powney, and Sarah Dessler's at the back of all this saying, okay, what's going on here? Well, as they roll them through, Mark De Vries is getting closer now. This is absolutely crazy racing between them as they head across that timing line, and well, on to another lap they go. Nothing between them all, albeit Ludbrick's now going for the cutback on Powney. However, does he get enough speed up the hill? He does, because Powney says, no you don't. He goes immediately defensive in that Corvette, and well, as they roll off of the hairpin, you can see there right now Sarah Dessler and also De Vries, they're playing their own little game, their own little battle for 6th place in class, 7th overall. But at any moment this could be triggered, and indeed the fight could suddenly absolutely implode onto our screens here. We will wait and see. As in our classes, well, some other battles going on as well. The battle for 7th place in Evo between Samuel Clark and Alex Boniface is gradually creeping the way in the favour of Samuel Clark, who's now put a second into that. So it's going to be Clark who's running off into the distance with that one, it would seem, at this time. Albeit we'll keep you apprised when we can of where that battle is going between the drivers. But at the moment, at least, it does seem as though all the drama there is to stay. But speaking of a bit of change of places, Liam Uniso up the inside of Owen Stewart there for 13th place overall. And our 2nd place Evo driver now has only a 4.5 second gap to Tadego Reza, who is 3rd place in Evo, and bringing along 4th place man Jordan Maymar. You can see the two of them glued nose to tail here in terms of the camera angle. Nothing between them as they roar the way on around. We had a bit of drama for Dean Sheesby. He suddenly dropped all the way down the order. We'll try and get a replay of that when we can. But these drivers right now continue onwards, and Jordan Maymar here in that Ferrari, I think he fancies his chances here as we ride aboard the dashboard of the number 30 versus Reza. I think he wants that 3rd place in the Evo class, but is he going to be able to get it? That will be the problem, because Reza, to be fair, has been no slowpoke when it's come to all the racing today. And we can see, look at the language of the two drivers here. Maymar, smooth exit. Reza, meanwhile, as soon as he exits the corner, yoinks the car to the pit wall to break the toe. He's under pressure, but Maymar goes deep and overspeed and some dirty air. He hasn't anticipated it, and the Simcast Racing Team UK driver will learn that for next time. He'll process that information. He needs to, because the closer he gets to the back of that BMW, the big bulking beast from Germany will just cause more dirty air to flow over the slim streamlined France and also from Italy. And right now that Ferrari needs to carry every mile an hour it can, because these BMWs we've seen today, if they're in the zone, they carry so much speed for the medium speed corners. It's really as if they're mid-engine rear-wheel drive, even though the engine's at the front. But roaring the way onwards, and right now Maymar 9, there's not really an opportunity to get involved. If anything, he's fallen further back, and Mark Johnson has started to get closer to him, so therefore he's going to play the patience game here as they roll their way up through Hawthorns. Further on down, we've got Rob Smith having a bit of a scuttle with Stuart Rice, as Rice there's going to tuck him right behind the McLaren driver, and well in front of them Sammy Ariba trying to keep them behind with Oliver Forstrom. Well, the Evo driver would love an opportunity to go battling with Ariba, but that's going to be too wide there. And we've got a car on the grass for a brief moment, and that's Alex Boniface, I think, who's relegated all the way down the order. But in all of that, that was Smith and Rice still going toe-to-toe, and Rice up the inside, and that's a tap to the rear of Reba's car that sends Reba around, and Rice finds himself in the park up there, as meanwhile Boniface avoids all the chaos and carnage in front of him. Well, I don't think Stuart Rice could have predicted that. We couldn't. My good lord, that's all gone wrong. Sammy Reba's towed to the pits. Rice carries on, but I wouldn't be surprised that Lamborghini's making a trip to the pit lane for some repair work. That'll be the second time it does it today, so there'll be no fast repair. Well, in fact, there will be a fast repair remaining, folks. We've got 2 fast repairs per race this season. But in all of this, well, we're back to the race leaders just in time because Pawnier's up the inside there of Aston. Well, right now, Aston, for all the pressure he put on Kenyon, Pawnier says, how about you try this on now, as they roar the way down the back straight. Ludbrook's there to help out, and as they head upwards the hill, Ludbrook right now is trying to help out his Carbo GP2 teammate and says, hold up a second, that's my place, get out of it. But as they come on through Hawthorne Bend, that Corvette's looking quick, but the Porsche's looking quicker, and it's going to be a battle there to the tightest line into Westfield Bend. But even Ludbrook says, no, I'm not fancying that, and onwards they come. Mark de Vries stays with them. We've got a car off onto the grass. That's none other than Hussein Surka-Dessler. Car's parked up, it's hit the wall, so Surka-Dessler's out of this pack, but where one falls, another rises. Mateusz Smolny's down the back of this one. We've got 4 minutes left, and I don't know what's going to end first, the race or my vocal cords at the moment, because they keep up this battling right now. I don't know if they're going to be able to cope. Hold up a second, is Jonathan Berry leading this race? When did he take the lead of this? We're going to have to try and find out, because suddenly we've got the Evo driver leading, and Andrew Fellows has lost the lead, and that is an absolute turn for events. It's all happening all at the same time, and well, John Ludbrook right now, as they head up the hill here, he's going to look for the middle. Pawnier again, goes for it, squeezes, there's contact between the two of them, and suddenly the red mist descends. Pawnier sent turning around, and Ludbrook in the end, well, he wanted it that badly. Well, he's got it, but I wonder whether afterwards he's going to have a word with Pawnier, and he might be thinking to himself, okay, I should have gone for it like that. But with all of that now puts Pawnier out of the race for what is 5th place, and Ludbrook's now got to try to hold off Mark de Vries, James Bostock and Mateusz Smolny here, and well, it's going to be absolutely on a knife edge between them all the way through, because Ludbrook with some damage on the front end of that Porsche, it's not going to feel as comfortable in the straights anymore, and it may struggle in the corners somewhat. But whilst we've got a brief moment, here's how Jonathan Berry took the lead of the race off Andrew Fellows. Now this was into turn 1, and Fellows just went deep and absolutely unaided, just rolled deep, and Berry just took the lead off him there. Well, Jonathan Berry right now happy. Oh, goodness me. And well, Martin Kenyon tried to go up the inside. I think Fellows came across not expecting Kenyon to be there, and then in the end went defensive down the hill and into was turn 3, and that's what caused the whole field to bunch up when we came back to it. So we came back to it in good time, and it was Fellows rejoining that essentially caused the field to come all back together. Not blaming Fellows for anything, but he wanted to go defensive versus Kenyon immediately, and in doing so caused that battle to erupt. But 2 laps remaining here. We are going to get 22 laps on the board unless I'm mistaken, and Jonathan Berry is running away with this. I think we're going to have an Evo overall winner again to follow on from the last time I had it, which was Andy Cho at the end of season 7. But as I try to carry on here, well, we're going to stay towards the front of the field at this point unless there's anything huge that happens further on down, as Dean Sheesby's on a recovery drive now up into 20th place ahead of Wenman. But we're going to stay with this top 10 because it is absolutely brilliant race in action, and Mark de Vries on the inside there, John Ludbrook, but Ludbrook's turned. And did Ludbrook get it wrong, or was he pushed around? We're not quite sure. But right now what we're sure is Martin Kenyon's too wide here with Andrew Fellows. He's going to be round the outside. He's been building up to this the entire race, but by going on the outside, does he now carry the momentum into Westfield via cutback? No, he does not. Fellows keeps in there for now. It's going to be Robin Aston right there with them as we ride on board with the 125 Porsche Carbe GP2. And Aston at this point is going to be thinking to himself, okay, Martin, here I come. This is going to be the final time I go for this, but he won't be going for it like that. If he makes an absolute ham sandwich out of Sheen Corner, you don't want to go that deep into the corner. So as they roll the way out, there's one more lap to go here, and the fight to be on the different spots of the Premier podium right now between Fellows, Kenyon and Aston is taking pole position in terms of the spectacle compared to Jonathan Berry. Your Evo leader has just run away with this, and indeed the gap he's got right now, he can afford to back off the pace. But it's incredible racing between them all, and well, I could have said it better myself there, Katie, in the YouTube chat with regards to great side-by-side racing and respectful space-wise. But right now, we hope they keep it clean all the way to the end, because we want to see who's going to be your Premier winner in this one behind your Evo winner. And I think Mark de Vries has fallen out of this fight and now has just hold off James Bostock, Mateusz Smolny and Minno Blom to the end, although he's going to go deep there, and with a little bit of traffic in front of him, that's Sean Clark. Well, James Bostock now is going to be all over the back of de Vries, but de Vries is sensible. He uses Clark as a barrier there and says to Bostock, you can go around the outside, but all you will find is a struggling McLaren. But Bostock's had a very good run coming out of Surtees Bend here, so in fact he might have the run down through Pilgrim's Drop. He's going to look around the outside here. Can he get it done? And he's going to go all the way for it here. 2 Porsches enter, but which one are we leading? Come the end of it, and De Vries will still be ahead by nose as they head into Westfield Bend, and that will be the change between them. Ian King, meanwhile, up the inside of Liam Yaniso there for 9th place in class. But from them, we come back to the battle for the Premier lead, and it is Andrew Fellows still hold off Martin Kenyon with Aston right behind Kenyon. But whilst they fight, I think the Premier win's going to Fellows. For Jonathan Berry, well, he's going to add his name to the history books of EVE overall winners, because for Jonathan Berry, it is going to be a brilliant day for Mission R. 2nd place in class in race number 1, and it's overall victory and class victory in race number 2 for the Mercedes driver. Andrew Fellows will be your Premier winner, run-up overall ahead of Martin Kenyon and Robin Aston, and it'll be 5th place for Mark De Vries ahead of James Bostock and Menno Blum, Mateusz Smolny, Robin Paunier and Ian King, who complete your top 10, with Liam Yaniso just missing out in the length ahead of Owen Seward, the runner-up in Evo class. Well done to him, ahead of John Ludbrook, with Jordan Maymar holding on to 3rd place in Evo at the end, and your top 15 completed by Mark Johnson. Denny Ploger will be 4th place in Evo. What a rise from Ploger to come all the way through the field ahead of Samuel Clark, who takes his first top 5 in Evo class of the season. Well done to the 22 driver. Diego Reiser will finish 6th in the Evo class, 18th overall at the close, ahead of Danny Veer and Dean Sheesby. And then we do have Barry Wenman in 21st ahead of Grant Miller. We've still got some more drivers to finish their races, including Daniel Paul in a very lonely 24th place, but 9th in Evo class, so some good points for Paul, ahead of Austin Graff, with then Andre Montine in 26th ahead of Robert Savage. And then we will have Oliver Forsstrom very shortly coming on through for Quatermass Motorsport as he roars his way across the line there in the Lamborghini Huracan. Not the track for the Lamborghini, it would seem today, for any of our Lamborghini drivers. They've struggled here. Stuart Rice will take 29th, and the last 2 lead lap finishers will be Rob Smith and Andy Chell, both of them having difficult races, but credit where it's due, not giving up and being in it to win it, and that's what it's all about, as we do see Craig Tillotson there finishing a lap down in 36th, and a frustrating race for him when it was looking so good for another top 5 in Evo. For goodness me, ladies and gents, but can I take a breath now? I think I can take a breath for a brief moment, but look at Jonathan Berry and Andrew Fellows. They're both happy with what they've achieved. But for Jonathan Berry, he will be absolutely ecstatic about this one. And I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, in the month building up to this season, when I spoke to him at Brands Hatch in person on the Paddock Hill Rise, he was absolutely excited to be on the grid. He said to me, I'm the guy to watch out for on this grid this season, and now we can see why, because he's absolutely delivering today, and that is a sensational result for Berry and for Fellows as well. His first Premier win of the season, and some huge points on that board. But as we do look to the scenic view, let's take you through those race results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries. And goodness me, I think there might be some Stewart's inquiries, so I do feel for our stewards this coming weekend. But here are those provisional results then from our second of our 30-minute races in round number 2 of the Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Championship Split B, as powered by Trophy AI and brought to you on iRacing. And the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit's second race saw Jonathan Berry take overall an Evo victory for Mission R powered by Mords, ahead of Flatline Racing's Premier winner, Andrew Fellows. Martin Kenyon rounded off the overall podium there for Axis SimSports Ice, ahead of Robin Aston and Mark De Vries, who completed your top 5 for Kame GP2 Racing and Sim Racing Team Lowlands respectively. James Bostock took 6th for Kame GP2 Racing, fending off the charger Menno Blum, the Sim Racing Team Lowlands driver, having a much happier race number 2 compared to race number 1. And then Mateusz Smolny there for Mission R Esports, making some great progress, but not quite the progress he wanted. And I think the long queue of cars in the end in the fight for second really confounded him. Robin Paunier finished in 9th there for Simcoach. Will be gutted to have missed out on a podium finish in the Premier class after that contact between himself and Ludbrook, but that's the way it's gone, with Ian King in 10th place for HH Racing, and then best the rest in the 11th, Liam Yaniso, the privateer. Owen Seward, runner-up in Evo, finished in 12th place for DXT Motorsports by ORA after a mid-race incident put him a long way down, but not out of the podium hunt for the class. Ahead of John Ludbrook for Kame GP2 Racing, and there was Jordan Maymar in 14th place for Simcast Racing Team UK. He was your 3rd place finisher in Evo, ahead of Mark Johnson for Axis SimSport Ice. That was your top 15, and we're not going to dwell on the overall finishing order, given the fact the points are scored in classes. But what we will do is talk a little bit about lap down drivers, with all of your lead lap finishers extending to 31st place in the form of Andy Chell for Quatermass Motorsport Bravo. And then we did have lap down drivers, including Sean Clark, to name the first one, Steve Rubino, Rachel Hugh, also Pete Piver, Craig Tillotson, and Hussein Sarakadesta, with that very late toe to the pit due to damage picked up coming out of Westfield Bend. We did see 2 laps down there to both Eddie Theobald and Alex Boniface, 5 laps down to Sammy Ariba for Mission R, and unfortunate retirements for Matthew Hunter, Charlie Stoffard, Ross Norsworthy, Ryan Abbott, George Stone, Philip McConaughey, James Pallett, Klaas Vellen, and Michael Evangeli, and the Mission R driver having a very frustrated day at the office here in round number 2. Then coming on to the individual class finishing positions, and this is where all the points are scored and where it truly matters. And as we see, Andrew Fellows in the Premier class taking up the victory for Flatline Racing ahead of Axis Sport Ice's Martin Kenyon. And what a battle between those two. 2 tenths separated them at the close, and the majority of the race distance, they were at that distance, if not closer. And indeed, I think they'll have enjoyed that one all the way through. Robin Aston was 3rd place for Carme GP2 Racing, trying to get stuck in versus Kenyon, but for every time pushed forward, mistakes came in and Dirty Air held him back. Mark DeVries was 4th there for Sim Racing Team Lowlands, and a special mention to the STL team of the fact that race 1 was an absolute nightmare, but race number 2, they really seemed to come on through, and Brands Hatch came back to them. Because behind Carme GP2 races James Bostock, who with a brilliant driver in race number 1, ended up prancing his way to a 5th place finish in race number 2. Well, we did have Sim Racing Team Lowlands Menno Blom in 6th. Mateusz Smolny was 7th there for Mission R ahead of Robin Palnier, with a sim coach driver being followed up by Ian King for HH Racing and Liam Uniso, the privateer. Outside the Premier top 10, it was then John Lebret best the rest in a length for Carme GP2 Racing, ahead of Mark Johnson, with the Axis Sport Ice driver being able to hold on quite comfortably versus Danny Ware for Dexterous Motorsport Zemex. And then we did have Dean Sheesby only 7 tenths behind him at the close for Moonshiners Racing Club in an up and down race number 2 for the BMW driver ahead of Rob Mackay, who rounds off the Premier top 15. Behind the Dexterous Motorsport Zemex driver, it was none other than Andrew Montine ahead of Stuart Rice, with Ralph Smith the last of the lead lap finishers for Premier, and a lap down to both Pete Piver and Hussein Sarkadesla. And then we did have the retirements of Charlie Stoffard, Ross Norsworthy, also George Stone, James Pallett, and Klaas Vellen. And then coming on to the Evo class, last but by no means least, and here we see Jordan Berry, your winner in Evo, by a rather lovely 16-second submission R powered by Mords, head of Owen Seward for DXT Motorsports by ORA. A further 6 seconds it was to Jordan Maymar for Simcast Racing Team UK, and that was your Evo podium, with Denny Ploger then with a brilliant drive through to finish in 4th place. Credit where it's due, that was a bit of a silent but deadly drive for the MJK Sim Racing driver that we didn't get too much coverage of, but the Dutchman making his way through to some big points ahead of Samuel Clark. Well done to the privateer and his 5th place finish there. And well, the McLaren driver there definitely has a few fans who'll be very happy with that performance, as I can see in the YouTube chat. Head of Tego Reza, who was 6th for 9 Pegasus Pantera, and for 2 seconds back it was Barry Wenman for Dexterous Motorsports Quamar. It was Grant Miller for Phoenix Racing Red ahead of Flatline Races Daniel Paul and Axis Sport Ice's Austin Graff, who completed your top 10, with the best arrested and length going to Robert Savage for Mission R, ahead of Oliver Forstrom for Quatermass Motorsport, ahead of his sister team driver Andy Chell, last of the lead lap finishers of Evo. 14th, it was Sean Clark for Dexterous Motorsport Zemex, ahead of Steve Rubino for Hobo Racing, with that huge instant coming out of Hawthorne's Bends for him, relegated him to a lap down finish in 15th. He'll be absolutely gutted about that one. And then also a lap down Rachel Hugh and Craig Tillison. 2 laps down to Eddie Theobald and Alex Boniface, and 5 laps down to Sammy Ariba before we come on to the retirees that were Matthew Hunter, Ryan Abbott, and I believe, unless I'm mistaken, we had a couple more there, Philip McConaughey and Michael Evangeli, also retirees. But that concludes all of your racing here today, ladies and gents, for the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, and my good lord, we're going to need a bit of a breather from that one before we go to round number 3. And we get a bit of a breather now because coming up in approximately 5 to 6 minutes' time will be our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And we'll get to hear the stories from them up and down the grid as to how they found the racing today. Don't go anywhere. You won't miss them, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you very shortly.
Of the green flag, and there we go. Tristan immediately getting the jump on his teammate Luke Lucchese, and he's going to have to go the long way around the outside. It's not done yet because Luke will have that favoured inside line going into turn 1 side by side. Has had a good start. He's up 2 places on the outside of Luke Lucchese, 3 wide there. The blue Acura on the inside. Hayden Phoenix Miller has gone from 4th to 1st in the matter of 1 braking zone there, and he will carry these drivers now down in toward turn 4. Great start there for the debutant who had strong qualifying pace, and now he might be up with an opportunity of making that stick if he can get the clean air in the next, and Plug could have a good run here. Let's ride on board. How does the Noblica defend? going into the chicane. Is Plur going to do that tactic where you just stay there right into the last, and Obliga moves over to the entry into the chicane? Good driving, that's a wobble by Tristan, and he's off the road. He's going to lose the position. Is he going to stick up the inside? No. And is Justin Eloff going to fancy his chances? No, he stays.
Watkins Glen, and to have only 9 minutes till we reset and go again gives the drivers a bit of a moment to pause for thought, because how are you going to manage this especially if you're 3 wide down the main straight? Humphrey, Leskinen, Kachali all don't get out Raz Harper either. 2 by 2 into the opening corner. Outside line taken for Humphrey. He's lost a little bit of time on the exit though, as it looks like it's a better run for Kali Leskinen, the leader now in that pro class, as they run their way up the hill through 2 and 3. It looks like Raz Harper's got the best run, and now we can see both elite drivers come through on both pro drivers. They'll have to get it done on the outside of the bus stop, and that is going to be more than difficult to do. Who's going to get the slipstream? That could be crucial. 1 hour will be on the clock as the pace car is about to roll back in. GT3, so many of them about to get racing. GT4 is just in behind as well. A brand new season is about to get going here at the Saxon Ring. It's ESR's GT European Championship, and Anton Kalo will lead us to green for the opening time this season. Jason Baxter and Jenny Tehar just in behind as the lights are on. The green flag flies, and there's a couple of drivers pulling out immediately of the pack. 3 wide, nearly 4 wide into the opening turn, with Denzel Clarkson trying to find an inside line. Jenny Tehar as well.
More, he's got Craig Hewlett in P11 just coming down the pit lane now with Henry Garcia, so this is going to end up being quite a tight battle. If they're going to also have Pedro to deal with, who would just be coming out in front of them. Yeah, he's a little bit further down the road, so these two are going side by side through a very, very tricky section. Looks like Craig's got the better of it done for the moment.
Seconds in the pit strategy, whether it's a 20-minute overcut, 20-minute undercut, we'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, Jenny Tehar and Jason Baxter are fighting it out for the lead of the overall race. Baxter trying to make his way through. It'll have to be an outside line into turn 2, where a GT4 sits on the racing line. That's the number 14, but they have to negotiate their way around. But as they run through turns 2 and through turn 3, they don't have to now worry about that GT4 any longer, and can continue working their way down a long way. And it can help you build in things like GT3, maybe some prototype cars as well. But yeah, it's so impressive to see him doing so well at the front of the field. Joe Glass getting himself, his teammate I should mention, as I said. Oh, still tries into that. That's a send from Dave Van Dam very late on the brakes into turn 1, but he's got it stopped in the apex. That's an incredible move. Very, very surprising for Joe Glass to find a car on his inside there, but effective for Dave Van Dam, and he has caught Joe Glass napping.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, let's get our interviews underway then. And without further ado, we're going to kick off with Jonathan Berry, the man who has sprung surprise on all of us today, particularly with that win overall and an Evo in race number 2. He joins me now in the interview room. Jonathan, what a day of racing from yourself. I mean, whether it be the second place in class and 7th overall in race number 1, or that incredible drive to victory in race number 2, I mean, you must feel absolutely ecstatic here at how you performed.
I told you when, as I heard over the stream, I told you at Brands Hatch when we were stood there waiting to go and do the pit walk, Brands Hatch is my home track. I've put countless real life laps here, I've raced here, and I've done really well. I can't stress enough that this is my track. I love it. Over the years of racing in simulators, in Forza, and whatever game you can possibly put Brands Hatch in, I've played it and I've done well here. It's my home track. You know, you're on home territory now.
Oh, 100%. Well, home territory, and immediately making it count and known to everybody. And I've got to ask, coming into this season, you've gone with the Mercedes AMG. It seems to be a very comfortable car. Was it always the car you were going to pick, or was there a last-minute influencing because of the aero change?
No, it was. I felt more stable in it over the BMW for some reason. I struggle a little bit with the front end. The front end doesn't really want to do too much in the Merc. but I found that I'm actually quicker because it feels more stable to drive than the M4 and doesn't really want to kill me on an exit. So yeah, I just feel a little bit more comfortable in the Merc overall, and it suits me. I guess it's a front engine car. I think, as Andy Chell told you once previously, I suit front engine cars for some reason. It must be my driving style. Yes, he can take full credit for it, but you know, it is what it is. It's a front engine car, and I do well in it. So yeah.
Well, for your comfort of front engine cars to your comfort out on Brands Hatch, qualifying saw you take 12th overall, second in class. A good qualifying session, but were you gutted to miss out on pole position?
Yeah, but I can't remember the name of the guy that was in first, but he set an absolute rocket ship time. And there was no chance I was catching it. I tried my best, but I just thought that, you know, maybe I can do something in the race, and he was gone. So I just settled in, hunkered down, and just brought home the P2. So there's nothing more I could do there. I wasn't catching him. If anything, he was pulling away. And yeah, just sort of tried to settle in and bring it home, basically.
Oh, absolutely fair. Although I do have to ask, what if the need to settle in and focus on finishing second in race number 1? Was there ever the temptation to potentially think to yourself, you know what, I'll settle for second, but I'll try and finish as low down inside the top 15 overall to guarantee I'm right at the front for race number 2?
Yes and no. It did cross my mind, but with too much thought process, mistake starts to creep in. So I quickly thought, I'm 9th, I'll leave it there. That puts me at like P6 or P7. That's fine. That's still higher up than what I am now. So I gained 2 positions in the swap around, even with a P2. So, you know, it can't have been that bad. And starting where I was, evidently, it was perfectly fine because I managed to get through into P1. So, you know, it was okay. It worked out for the best, and you know,
well,
yeah.
It definitely worked out for you going into race number 2, and I think this is really the story that everyone wants to know about, because what an exciting race. From the green, you're in a pack of drivers where it's essentially absolute pandemonium. There's premier drivers around you, left, right, and centre. And from the outset, everyone's fighting, and you find yourself very quickly running inside the top 3. Just take us through how you felt in all the moment for at least the opening 20 minutes.
Scared, I think is the word. With the new tyre model and everything set the way it is, everything is now incredibly scary. So even the most slightest mistake inside the first 7 laps is just going to be carnage. So I just stuck to what I knew and did what I could to keep up with the pack in front. Obviously, I tried to bring Mateusz along with me. Obviously, I tried to get him through and bring him along for the ride, but it wasn't meant to be, sadly. But yeah, I don't know. It's very scary being in a pack of Prem drivers that, you know, are quick, are absolutely capable drivers to be there. Yeah, just incredibly tough to, you know, Brands is a quali heavy track. So making a move in a tight track in the way it is, you're not going to see many, but when you see them, they're going to be great. And that's why I love it, because when you make a move and you start working your way through a pack, it's one every couple of laps. It's, you know, it's a surprise when you come back around and think, okay, I'm now P5, 4. Yeah, it's just mega scary, especially on cold tyres here, because the Merc has no front end, so we just try and make it work. Hence, I dropped off a little bit, as you can see in the clips you're playing now. I dropped off a little bit to the pack in front because I'm still getting the tyres up. Yeah, once they're in, they're great. But there you go. There's another bit of cold tyres. Again, yeah, I can't say much more on that. It's just mega scary.
Well, for it being scary out there, and you started counting down numbers, and you were saying to us 5-4, and then we have to carry on with 3 and 2. Let's talk about that. You suddenly leaping your way from 4th to 2nd. What if Martin Kenyon and Robin Aston fighting so hard around the GP loop? I mean, I'm amazed they didn't both take each other off onto the grass, but as they left the door open, I mean, at what point do you say, sorry lads, I'm going to take this, see you later?
Oh, do I be really cringeworthy and say the Ayrton Senna quote?
Go for it.
No, I'm not going to say it. You can't not go for a gap if it becomes available. And I had to take the opportunity because I wasn't going to get another one. And if I didn't take it, who knows what would happen? If we could have gone and crashed all three of us, but we didn't. I don't know who drives the Audi yet because I haven't learned the cars and the names. But yeah, it could have ended a lot worse. But we managed to make it work, and I want to say ran away with it, but I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that person. I didn't run away with it. They were just battling really hard behind me.
Well, from them battling hard, a few laps later, then absolute pandemonium erupted here in the commentary booth. When we suddenly discovered you're leading, we looked back. I mean, at what point did you think to yourself, okay, I'm leading the race because Andrew Fellows has just accidentally taken a trip into the paddock hill sand gravel?
There was a repeat thing. There was 3 words that were just going through my head, and it was bring it home, bring it home, bring it home, bring it home, just constantly going through my head. And I told myself no silly mistakes and just keep going. And I did. For somehow, I brought it home and I won. And I'm over the moon. I got my first P1 in competitive league racing overall, which is great.
Oh, fantastic. And I'm glad we've been able to witness that here today. And I mean, with that momentum and a huge score of points, something tells me that when we do see the Drivers' Championship stands going into round number 3, if you're not leading, you're going to be very close to it. So the next big question is, how are you feeling for round 3 at Fuji?
Not so sure about the mixed conditions. If they can change to dry, then that would be great. Just a heads up, that'd be fantastic. Thanks very much. Yeah, no, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about mixed conditions. We did it a couple of years ago in another league, and I felt quite good there. I tested it the other day, and the Merc didn't feel fantastic. Felt a bit floaty, so I'm going to work with our engineer and see if we can get a nice little setup for that, because Fuji, I don't believe, is on one of the upcoming HIMO lists. So we're going to get a nice setup going, and I'm going to work with him over the weekend and see if we can get a naughty little setup ready for next week.
That's absolutely fair, and plenty of preparation time then going in preparation for Fuji. But just before we do let you go, we've got to ask, is there any way you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Absolutely. All the Mission R boys and girls. Thank you for tuning in if you're on the stream. And thank you to Mauds, Dubby, and everyone else that looks after us, and Nolan for the setups. Does a wonderful job, my little wizard. Yeah, that's about it. And thank you to you, Paul, and for ESR for having us. Much appreciated.
Well, a big thank you to you, Jonathan, for joining me in the interview room, and, well, for being our first interview of the evening. Well done once again on an incredible pair of results, particularly the win in race number 2, and not just a win in class, but also an overall win and your first league win as well. You're really making a number of firsts here today for Season 9, I must say. Plenty more to come, I'm sure, at Fuji in a week's time. Subject to those conditions, of course, whether you can get the setup right. But we look forward to seeing whether you can carry it on there. But until then, my friend, have a fantastic rest of your evening and relish the moment.
Thanks, Paul. Much appreciated. See you later, everybody. Good night.
So here in there, ladies and gentlemen, for a very happy Jonathan Berry. You can hear the energy in him, how excited he is with how it's all worked out. And, well, I think with that, he's going to be somebody now who will carry that momentum forward. And if anything, I think that's only going to embolden him when we do go into our next round at Fuji. And, well, you can imagine that he's going to be fancying himself now in that Mercedes as a potential title favourite. Interesting you should talk about there the fact that not looking forward to the prospect of mixed conditions at Fuji, but we will see what exactly plays out there, and a lot of work will have to go into the setup for that Mercedes to get the most out of it at the rather tricky Japanese circuit. But for the meantime, for Jonathan Berry, he's just got to sit there and think to himself, I've just taken that and relish the moment, because sometimes if you reflect on the happy moments, that's where you can build upon them and keep that mental momentum going. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we've got another interview coming up very shortly. We'll be right back for our second interview of the evening. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to bring into the interview room to join me Andrew Fellows, our premier driver today, who race number 1, it was all about finishing towards the bottom end of the top 15. Race number 2, it was all about holding on for dear life for the Premier win. Andrew, I mean, I've just tried to summarise it, but from your perspective, how's your evening been? Because I can imagine race number 2, you could write a whole novel about trying to keep Martin Kenyon at bay.
Oh gosh, yes, definitely. Race 1, I didn't have the best of qualifying, let's be fair, but I made up quite a few places, and my teammate Rob was on fire, literally just burning off into the distance with a 6-second gap. I was like, wait for me, so he was on fire, and then race 2. I was a bit nervous. I was like, okay, I'm at the front of the grid. I'm starting P2, and then fortunately, I didn't get taken out when George spun. I managed to duck underneath at turn 1 because I believe it was George. The Porsche spun across my nose, so that was a bit of a fright, to put it that. And then just Martin was ballistic through sector 1. Through Paddock and into Druids, he was on me like 2 tenths. None of this 6-second that Rob had in the first race. It was 2 tenths all the way. But fortunately, I had the pace at the back, of the circuit, and that always pulled me enough to keep him at bay. I made a few mistakes. Can't say I didn't run wide at Paddock or Bend after I had a 3-second gap. Had a little bit of contact with Martin when I tried to defend, but everything was okay. We kept it on track, but it was a good scrap and really well worked from Martin as well to keep that P2.
Now, we'll come back to the battle between yourself and Martin in a short while, but just before we get to that, talking a little bit about qualifying. 27th overall, 20th in class. What went wrong in qualifying? Because the pace you've demonstrated, I mean, it was very close in qualifying. And one statistic was that the top 24 separated by under a second. Did you just find yourself the victim of a close pack, or just did things not click together in qualifying?
I think it was a bit of both. Like, I'd been practicing, I was in the mid-22s, but obviously the practice I'd been doing, the temperature was about 10 degrees different. So I think that doesn't help if you're practicing in that way, but that's my fault. So I think it was tight. I mean, I was only 1.1 off Rob for pole position, and I think it was a couple of attempts here and there, like maybe like half a second would have gained me like 5 or 6 places. So I think it was a mixture of both. And yeah, I mean, I didn't get my final lap because I somehow managed to put 1 less lap of fuel in, which was stupid. So yeah, but it was a tough one with qualifying, and yeah, I'm not the best at qualifying. I'm not outright speed. I'm more consistent.
Well, to be fair, that consistency absolutely shone through. In race number 1, you made up 13 places to creep yourself inside the top 15 for the reverse grid. I mean, I can presume it was always the target to finish inside the top 15, but could you quite believe it, given Brands Hatch is such a tricky circuit to overtake at?
I knew I had a bit of pace anyway, and I just tried really hard to try and just pick off people. I think there was Robin in front of me. He was quite quick in race 2, and like I'd be on his back bumper and then he'd be gone. We got caught up with a couple of back markers towards the end, but I completely forgot about the reverse grid, if I'm all honest, until Rob said at the end, he says, I'm going to start 15th, and I was like, well, I finished like 11th, so God knows, like I'll be 4th, but I didn't account to it being overall. That was just, I was like 11th in class or whatever, so I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, starting P2, I was like, this is a good opportunity. And then when George spun off, I was like, this is a really good opportunity.
Oh, well, a huge opportunity arose there in race 1. Now, race number 2, let's break it down a little bit. First, what happened towards the end that saw you relinquish the lead overall? Because it looked like you were gradually pulling away with everybody behind you starting to throw punches at each other in the long pack of 10 cars that you'd created. And then suddenly we look away for a moment and we come back to find you're in second now and Martin Kenyon's breathing down your neck again. And it's all because of Paddock Hill Bend.
Yeah, I missed my breaking point. Probably not by a lot, to be fair. And I end up going straight on into the gravel by maybe a car's width, a couple of cars width. But before the apex, I basically missed my apex by a mile. I managed to get back on track as Jonathan shot past, and then I went to jump in behind him and defend from Martin because I was like, yeah, Martin's there as well. But yeah, that's where me and Martin had a little coming together. Because I didn't account for the closing speed, so he was alongside a lot quicker than I expected. But fortunately, it was just a little knock. No damage done overall as in places or anything. It was just a little knock. I have apologised to him, and we raced on. And yeah, he's still breathing down my neck.
And just on that, I mean, the fighting between the two of you, it's great that you've both talked about what happened there and the subsequent apology. But I mean, just the contrast of the two cars. And at one point as well, you managed to get Martin to fall backwards into the clutches of Robin Aston and get them to fight. Were you thinking at that point, oh, brilliant, right, I've got them both fighting, I can just go away, only to then end up back with them?
Yeah, so like they were very close, and I could see that Robin was really close as well. So I was like, I need to do something. And every time Martin was really quick through, as I say, through sector 1 up to before like the back straight, and I was quicker at the back. So I was like, okay, so my little bit of defending, trying to stop Martin, even if I made a little error, I always had that margin just to pull in front of him. And I think the one he was side by side with me going down the back straight, or very close to it. And I managed to... No, sorry, it was the other way around. He went to the inside, going into the fast right-hander at the end of the straight, but he backed out of it. So that then put him in the clutches of Robin. And then I think they went side by side through the back. So that gave me that breathing space. I was like, yes, I can breathe.
Oh, goodness me. Well, it was absolutely brilliant back and forth racing between the two of you, but you secured the Premier win in the end, even if it was by 2 attempts. And that's now an absolutely blistering round number 2, followed up from Daytona. We head to Japan in a week's time for Fuji. How are you feeling for the Japanese circuit?
Well, I won't actually be here for Fuji. I'm working because I work shifts. Unfortunately, these 2 weeks I've been off. But yeah, Fuji's going to be my drop round. It's looking likely I'm going to have to try and wiggle some shifts around if I keep this pace up to try and get a trophy. But yeah, no, it was good fun, and I'm sure everyone will do well at Fuji, and I'll be definitely watching the stream back.
Oh, well, we will massively miss you at Fuji. I mean, we want to see you out there going for wins again, given the pace you're demonstrating. But still, we'll see you back in future rounds. But just before I do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, so obviously thank you to yourself again for the broadcast and all the interviews you do, which is really much appreciated. Everyone at ESR that puts the league on, it's a lot of hard work behind the scenes. I know they can get very busy, especially with running the 2 splits. And the drivers, obviously, they've been really good, some really good close battles. But definitely Flatline Racing and Rob. Rob has done excellent tonight with his win, so it's actually a double Flatline Prem win, so that's quite an achievement, to be fair. So yeah, well done to Rob.
Oh, 100% like you said, a huge victory for your teammate in race number 1. So a great way to wrap things up here in the United Kingdom. And with that, we'll wrap things up there with yourself, Andrew. It's been an absolute pleasure. Well done on your results, particularly at holding on to the Premier win in race number 2. We'll miss you in Japan, but we'll see you later on this season on the grid. And when we do, I'm sure there's going to be sparks. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks, Paul, and you, mate.
So hearing there from Andrew Fellows, our premier winner in race number 2, second place overall. And in race number 1, the man who gradually fought his way through the field to end up finishing in 27th, well, not from 27th, well, took his way from 27th overall to finish 14th. And, well, at one point in race 2, pulling away off into distance as we see in the pictures here, but in the end, just not quite able to do so. That late mistake cost him dear, as he talked about there. But plenty of positives. I do like that. I might have to start rearranging my shifts even more if I'm going to be carrying up this pace to see if I can make sure I bring home a trophy at the end of the season. He surprised himself for Flatline Racing. But indeed, the team surprising us today with Rob Smith taking the win in race 1 in Premier and overall. And then for Andrew to do it in this one, their team's championship is definitely getting underway. And some brilliant driving there from Andrew, it must be said. And well, we are going to now hear from the other side of the coin, ladies and gentlemen, because I believe waiting for us is Martin Kenyon. And we are just going to get that confirmed. We'll be back within 30 seconds, if not sooner, to be able to get our final interview of the day underway. Well, here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. You've heard from one of the two big players in that battle for the Premier win in race number 2. But now we're going to hear from the man in the Audi, Martin Kenyon. Martin, good evening to you. And, well, I need to preface this by saying, a difficult day at Daytona last time out. The Audi seemed to bite you quite badly at Daytona. But here today at Brands Hatch, you've tamed the German beast. It looked pretty skittish in race number 1 after what was looking for a podium potentially, but race number 2, you got it under control and you've delivered some of the finest racing of the season so far. I mean, how did it feel to you?
Well, the Audi is a bit of a beast, isn't it? I don't know why I went for it, to be fair. I think it was just because no one else would. Well, race 1, the track temps were quite high, and the Audi just suffers in fast corners when the tyres get too hot and like, I don't know, that's what caused my spin, I think, towards the end of race 1.
Well, absolutely fair. I mean, rolling it back and appreciate the insight about the challenges of higher track temperatures. Qualifying, another lightning session from yourself in the Audi, 7th on the overall grid, 6th in Premier. Do we expect this to be a recurring theme of qualifying? Because I know a lot of drivers say they really struggle in qualifying, but for yourself, it seems like you get dialed in very quickly.
Well, the Audi builds its tyre temperatures up pretty quick. So once they're there, they're there. It's just moderating them so they don't overheat, because, as I say, the Audi just doesn't like hot tyres and hot tracks.
Well, that's fair. And going into the first race then, we saw you make some progress very early on. And I have to ask, did you feel as though there was not just the opportunity for a podium, but even an opportunity for the win in race 1, given the pace you were bringing to the table? Because you were lightning quick. In fact, I think for a good portion of the race, you held the fastest lap.
Oh, well, I'm not too sure about that. I wasn't really paying attention to what lap times I was doing. I was just more focused on keeping up with the guys in front, seeing if anyone would fall off the track or anything like that, maybe gain some positions that way.
Well, you definitely were making some great progress. I'm just trying to double check that statistic. In fact, I may be slightly wrong on that one, but I think you were very close to setting the fastest lap early on in the race. But still, neither there nor neither. After that, obviously you had the spin. What did the mindset perhaps switch at that point to think, okay, stay inside the top 15, don't fall out of it, because you'll put yourself towards the front for race 2?
Absolutely. When I came back on the track, I think I was like P15 or P14, so I thought a front row start for race 2 would be perfect. And well, a couple of guys didn't calculate their fuel right at the end, and I think some of us had a couple of off tracks that put me up a couple more spots, which put me down further for race 2, but it didn't make much of an issue for race 2.
Oh, 100%.
No, I was just... Oh.
Well, no, after you.
Now I'm just going to waffle. Carry on.
Now, all I was going to say is that after that, getting onto the grid for race number 2, I mean, you had a good start, but then found yourself coming up against arguably the immovable object, which is a McLaren in the hands of Andrew Fellows. We've heard from Andrew, but from your own perspective, how was that battling with him? And then Robin Aston deciding to be player free in all of it.
Well, it was intense. I mean, he's my teammate in the Danny League Porsche Cup on a Sunday. So I thought I'll try and keep it fairly clean. Try not to hurt him, but I was trying to pressure him into making a mistake more than anything. I was quick in like the first section of the track, and he was quick in the middle section, and I was sort of on par in the final section. So, but I was really trying to pressure him into that turn 2 hairpin and turn 3, because that's where I was a lot faster than him.
Well, that's fair. And in all of that, obviously putting pressure on Andrew, but the involvement of Robin as well. I mean, we saw some bits, particularly coming up through Dingledale and Sheen, where the two of you went too wide through there and both almost escorted each other to the grass, and that enabled Jonathan Berry to get through. I mean, were there certain points where you practically, I can imagine, trying to mentally say to Robin, just go away. I need to go after the guy in front. I don't need you interfering, as much as he wants to play battle with you.
I was hoping he'd not try and make a move, but I was having to course through those fast corners just to try and moderate my tyres. It's all about tyres in the Audi, but I was a couple of attempts slower in each of those corners. That's why he went for a move there. I was just inviting it, but it's just unfortunate we had a bit of contact. But that's part of racing, innit? I think there was just racing incidents.
Oh, 100% I'd agree on that one. It was an absolute spectacle, the fighting between the two of you. And then coming back to the Battle of Andrew, you were able to clear Robin after a bit of time. Had a couple of scuffs, including when Andrew had his off at Paddock Hill Bend, but rejoined. A bit of a close one, but I believe yourself and Andrew have talked about that one and cleared the air on it.
Well, I understand what he was trying to do, and I understand like he just didn't realise there's so much of a closing speed difference and that. But I think that one will have to go to the stewards.
Oh, that's absolutely fair. Well, that's what the stewards are for at the end of the day. I can't blame you. And looking ahead now, I mean, it's been 2 solid results today, a 9th and a 2nd in class, some big points. We head to Fuji in a week's time. How are you feeling for the Japanese circuit?
I've heard a lot of people don't like Fuji, and I quite enjoy it. The last 2 occasions I've actually driven Fuji, it was in the wet, so I might have a bit of advantage because every time I've raced it has been wet, and we are expecting rain, I think. So it should be pretty interesting.
Oh, I'm with you on that one. I mean, I think I can openly say it as well. I love Fuji as a circuit. I'd love to see you bring that Audi charging through the field. But just before I do let you go, Martin, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast this evening?
Thank yourself for being such a fantastic broadcaster. I'd like to thank Axis for having me on board for this season. I tend to swap teams every season just to meet new people, and Axis have been really great, enjoyable, teaching me a few things as well. And I'd like to thank Andrew Fellows for being such a good teammate in the Porsche Cup as well.
Oh, it's brilliant to you've been made to feel welcome at the Axis Sport Ice team. And like you say, jumping from team to team, getting to know people, that's what it's all about. And we're very grateful to have got to know about your thoughts on your racing today. So with that, Martin, we're going to leave it there. Well done in results from today. Solid performances all round. Unfortunate not to pick up the win in race number 2, but still there's more to come. And I said we've got plenty to see from you at Fuji. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you very much. Same to you.
So hearing it there, ladies and gentlemen, from our final interview of the day, Martin Kenyon. And well, you can hear it in his voice, I think exhausted by the racing today, but very happy with his performances as well. And well, the main theme there really being that he really had the pace in the Audi, but giving us an insight there into the challenges of the Audi and what happened at Daytona and what happened in race number 1. Tyre temperatures, so important in the Audi R8. If they go too high, the car gets very unstable, and with that instability, it very quickly has a risk of going around. And that's what happened in race 1, and in race number 2, openly admitting when he got close to the back of Andrew Fellows, had to moderate the tyre temperatures on the GP loop, and naturally that brought Robin Aston into the fray. But if he can manage those tyre temperatures, keep the car nice and cool, he then becomes absolutely on point with the pace. And I think that's going to be his up and down battle for the season, which is if he can manage the Audi, he's one of the only drivers who's taken it. And he decided to take it because nobody else would. Well, now he's understanding why nobody wants to take it. But if he can command it like he did in race number 2, I think we could be seeing a potential candidate for the championship in Martin Kenyon. And well, it'd be great to see the 4 rings of Germany right up on top there. there in the capable hands of the Axis Sim Sports Ice driver. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that brings our interviews to a close, and a big thank you there to our 3 interviews who we've heard from this evening. That was Jonathan Berry, firstly, in the Evo class for Mission R powered by Mords. We then heard from Andrew Fellows for Flatline Racing in the Premier class, and at the other end of the Premier class battle, the 2 Titans of Fellows and Martin Kenyon, with the Axis Sim Sport Ice driver just joining us as our last of our interviews. We're going to hear from plenty more of our drivers as the season goes on. You can bet on that, ladies and gentlemen. There's a story to be had up and down the field, but we focus today at the very top of the field because of the spectacle and the achievements of all 3 of these brilliant individuals, and we look forward to plenty more at Fuji in a week's time. But with that, it's now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed the show today, be sure to let us know. Be sure to leave a like on this broadcast. Tune into the Split A broadcast as well. Check that as a video on demand, and also feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you do want to be on the grid with us at Evolution Sim Racing, there's never been a better time to be on the grid, to be fair. Well, we've got plenty of racing going on. And Thursday evenings, of course, we have the GT3 League that you've been tuning into this evening. But from the GT3 Championship to what happens on Sunday evenings, well, we currently have the European GT Championship that's gradually winding towards its closure point, and after that we will have the Americas GT Challenge that carries on from it in the weeks to come, and that'll be where we've got GT3s and GTEs out on circuit and mixing it up in multi-class fashion, and indeed 2 cars that are very similar on pace, and that should be a very intriguing one, whereas the European GT Championship is the more traditional GT3s and GT4s. In the Daily Porsche Cup, we have an alternating Sunday evenings with the European GT Championship, and that dedicated to the Porsche 992 GT3 Cup car in proud collaboration with Danny Lee and GT Omega. And we also do have, for those who not perhaps wanting to pay to get onto the grid and perhaps looking for a free place to practice and get up to speed, we always do have our Practice League as our entry point at Evolution Sim Racing, and that is on Tuesday evenings and Saturdays at 4 in the afternoon at UK time. Indeed, there's something for everyone here at Evolution Sim Racing, and for all this and more, if you want to find out what goes on at Evolution Sim Racing and be at the beating heart of the community, join the official Discord and get yourself on track. Invite link available on screen or using the invite code. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include Trophy.ai, Carme More Than Technology, SimCoach, where you can unlock your true potential on the virtual racing circuit, the GP2 Group, and also a big thank you to Motorsport UK's esports division, who continues to recognise us here at Evolution Sim Racing as a recommended community, and we're very grateful for that status. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, we've had 2 absolutely brilliant rounds. At Daytona, it was all about strategy. Meanwhile, at Brands Hatch, it was all about single lap pace and hold on over the race. But in a week's time, on Thursday, the 10th of July, 2025, at the Fuji International Speedway, it'll be bringing all that together, plus the option of mixed conditions. And for round 3, will we start to see some early championship favourites emerge as the points start to build? Well, we will see in Japan. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, we have been Evolution Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, also known as TX11 or Britain a Spit, for the Split B portion of the championship. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.
For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.